Right, hello. We are here
Hello.
today, and we are going to talk about Spikemuth and make a tier list. And I am joined by Paul J. Spear,
Hello, everybody.
a very accomplished Spikemuth player. You've been doing well with a couple of tournaments, haven't you?
Yeah, I suppose so. I got top four in the the PokePace random tour, where you have to use a random team every round. I got top four in that. I've won three ladder tours by the London Corviknights. I have bubbled at 17th place for top 16 with a 6-2 record in the Nino tour. And most recently this weekend, nothing to write home about. I went 3-3 in the Rose Tower one, which you had a better time in, I believe.
Yep. So I top cut the Rose Tower tour, and I
Nice.
also did pretty well in a couple of the tour that was the Corviknight tours, wasn't it? I did it decently well in a couple of the ladder tours, and I also hit 1600 on Showdown. So I did hit top five at one point, but
Yeah.
sadly
Oh
people have taken over that ladder, so I'm not got that point anymore. But still,
yeah. Yeah, I actually I did hit 1627 recently. And then a bad session brought me down to 1500. So
yeah, we'll still count our highest accomplishments. Like I'm down in the 1400s now, but we don't talk about that.
yeah, that's
I was just testing
it.
loads of stuff. So yeah, we're both. I'd say we're probably the two strongest players in terms of Spikemuth in the UK at the very least. So with that, we can start trying to make this tier list and show everyone our opinions on stuff. So let's go and just right. So let's get the elephant out of the room. All right. Shall we start with Rillaboom? Because I feel like Rillaboom is like a really pivotal force in the metagame right now.
Yeah, it's arguably the best Pokemon in the meta.
I'm glad you said that. I honestly agree. I feel like Rillaboom just offers so much in terms of pivoting, in terms of terrain and utility. You get fake out, get U turn, you get priority from it. It pretty much offers you pretty much everything you could need, and it has a grass typing as well. So it's not actually contested as much as other types in this tier, I don't think. With the exception of some stuff that I'll go on to later. But yeah, I feel like Rillaboom's incredibly strong and incredibly versatile, and it definitely deserves a spot, probably at the top of S tier, I think.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. It's got a 80 base power um, priority move, which is just nutty. I think if Incineroar didn't exist, this thing would actually be a problem. I
Yeah,
really do think this thing would actually be a serious problem, and possibly even make the format unplayable. So thank thank the Lord we have Incineroar knocking about.
speaking of Incineroar, let's go and talk about Incineroar as well. I feel like Incineroar definitely isn't as oppressive as it might have been in other formats. I'm sure you're aware of how good it was in the good old VGC 2022 with Series 412. Yeah, Series 12,
Yeah,
where it's pretty much on, is it like 70-80% usage for Incineroar?
yeah. I mean, see, I think me and you have been involved in this debate before, and personally, I'm a big Incineroar enjoyer,
Yes.
and I do genuinely believe it makes for healthy formats. As like, I can only really talk from like VGC 2020 onwards because I'm a relatively new player. I didn't play 19, 18. Um, however, I do believe Incineroar keeps things in check. Like we alluded to it a minute ago with Rillaboom. Like I do really believe Rillaboom would be a big issue in this format if Incineroar wasn't knocking about.
Yeah,
Similar with Zacian in Series 12.
that's what I think. Like, I know there was a big debate actually that happened when people were discussing about, oh, is Incineroar actually like the problem? Is Incineroar the solution? I feel like Incineroar's been the solution, and if the rumored like Intimidate nerfs come in, I really wonder what's going to happen to just like how we play Pokemon in general. Because I feel like this pivoting Intimidate game is almost like an established part of what defines VGC and doubles right now, like as a whole.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think if the for those of you who maybe spoiler alert, just to give people a chance to you know turn this off if you don't want to hear any possible rumors or leaks. But the leak or the rumor, so to speak, is that Intimidate is going to be nerfed, so it will only affect the Pokemon directly opposite. So if you switch Incineroar in on the right slot, then the Pokemon on the opponent's left, your right, would only be affected by Intimidate, which is honestly, that's a massive, massive nerf. I still see if Incineroar is in the game. I still see Incineroar being used because obviously, we've established its utility. Part and shot is still a massive thing, which is very like limited distribution. At least it is now. We don't know what the new game's going to look like. But yeah, this thing's crazy. It's got Fake Out, it's got Intimidate, it's got a great defensive typing and offensive typing. Yeah, what hasn't been said about Incineroar?
Exactly. I think we put it lower than Rillaboom for this format, right? I feel like Rillaboom has slightly more kind of stakes with its typing in terms of what it does. I feel like you can just fit it in so easily to so many teams. Like Incineroar does actually get a little bit of competition from some things in this format, but I still think it deserves an S tier space.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think behind Rillaboom's a fair point because being able to do 60% to something with a priority move that's not even super effective is pretty crazy. So yeah, I would put Rillaboom higher, but thank God Incineroar is just behind it.
Yeah, thank goodness. So other grass types, as I mentioned, Tsareena has definitely come around a lot more and gives competition. In fact, I've even seen some teams that run both Rillaboom and Tsareena, which is shocking, but it's something that people have used to prevent this strong S tier Pokemon Intimidate cycling. Pivoting and Fake Out, and Tsareena is kind of like a quick go-to answer for that.
Yeah. I do like the idea of having Rillaboom and Tsareena on the same team because there's the potential of resetting terrain with a Rillaboom switching and then clicking grassy glide with Tsareena and being able to pick off maybe a surprise KO that your opponent didn't maybe consider. So I do kind of like it. Obviously, the type overlap isn't great, but that can be worked around. As Santino Tarquino shown in the Players Cup Invitational, he won that with Rillaboom and Tsareena with a Scarf Kyogre. I know it's a different format, but it was still no Dynamax. So there was a restricted allow, but there was still no Dynamax, and that duo did show that it can work at the very, very highest level. But Tsareena by itself offers Queenly Majesty, which prevents any priority moves from hitting your side of the field, or if your opponent has it, their side of the field. And that includes flying types as well, which Psychic Terrain doesn't offer. So if you are using a very strong flying type that you want to protect by, like, from Fake Out or any kind of priority, Tsareena is the go-to. In terms of move sets, it's got a great kit. Triple Axle, Power Whip, Grassy Glide, Play Rough, U-Turn, High Jump Kick. There's probably some other
a grass type getting ice coverage is insane.
Yeah,
just by itself. The only question is, where do we place it?
It's a tough one. It's either high A or low S, maybe pushing mid S. I would be inclined to put it in S tier personally.
You think it's low S? Because I think it's high A, but I'm happy to put it low S because I don't think there's going to be too much in the S tier.
Yeah, I'd like to see how the S tier and the A tier start shaping out, and then maybe we can revisit it later. But I think for now S tier because there's so much Fake Out and priority in the meta.
Yeah.
You've got Urshifu with Aqua Jet, Rillaboom with Grassy Glide and Grassy Terrain. There's Fake Out everywhere. Most teams have 2 to 4 Fake Out mons. I think its ability is invaluable. Its typing is good. Grass type is a good typing. It can run a variety of items: Assault Vest, Wide Lens. I've even seen Rocky Helmet picking up lately as well. To catch Surging Strikes on the Switch. So yeah, I would argue low S tier personally.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
Hang on a sec. Is Urshifu on this list? I can't actually see Urshifu. But
is Urshifu not on the list?
I don't think Urshifu's on the list.
Oh, it's not too relevant anyway.
It's fine. Should we make Urshifu a Machamp and just specify that it's Urshifu. Because Machamp's not really used. I don't know, I'm just thinking of a placeholder.
Yeah.
I'll have to make sure to say
yeah.
specifically, this is Urshifu, okay? Okay.
Yeah, let's use Machamp as an Urshifu placeholder.
Sure. Alright. So, everyone, this is Urshifu. Urshifu's definitely S tier, though, I think. We'll talk about Urshifu Dark first. I guess we could find a Fighting Dark. This is Scrafty, right? We could use Scrafty as a placeholder. I don't think it's here. No, okay, fine. We'll just use Machamp, it's fine. Right. So
is this single strike Dark Urshifu we're talking about?
Yeah, single strike.
Okay. Honestly, A tier.
You think so?
I think. Yeah, and maybe even like mid to low A.
Oof, that's a hot take.
The thing hit like a truck, but of capability for defensive switches, Tapu-Fini is quite popular. I just don't see it. Okay, maybe high A. Maybe high A.
I was gonna say, I definitely think you can place it in high A. It's just such a good in terms of the things that it checks, it has this like really strong, hard hitting dark move that I think obviously it has its own niche because of that, because Incineroar doesn't really cover that niche. And I feel like you hit some very specific things because it just hits a really good type. That's what I think. Just in terms of psychic types are all right now. And it also just hits with lots of things for like strong neutrals. So it allows for a couple of double ups with other fast partners. It's often the basis of a lot of hyper offensive cores. Like I've seen Urshifu, Nihilego, Urshifu, Tornadus, all sorts of weird fast teams that tend to revolve around carrying the Urshifu on the back of some kind of speed control or some kind of fast mode.
Yeah, it wants to move first, doesn't it? Unless you're giving it a focus sash.
Yeah.
I've seen a bunch of choice band ones. The reason I was saying mid is because fairies are quite common and popular in this meta. So yeah, teams at least have 1 to 2 usually that they can switch in on it and stuff like that. Which always like I have tested Dark Urshifu extensively actually because on my team I actually settled for a Water Urshifu over it because of that. I maybe it was just the way I was playing, I don't know, but it was I just couldn't kind of get it going, if that made sense. That's probably influenced my decision. But when I think about it, being able to crit 100% of the time, amazing. Ignore protects, amazing.
Ignore intimidate.
Ignore intimidate because of the crit. Yeah, ignore screens, which I know screens aren't big right now, but that's probably another topic. But that kind of baffles me. I'm surprised Grimmsnarl's not going crazy. But that's another topic. But yeah, I think I'm kind of influenced by how popular Water Urshifu is, and that's probably made me compare them too closely and maybe rank it a bit lower than it should have done. But yeah, Dark Urshifu's top 80, 100%.
I can't see. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Speaking of Grimmsnarl, Grimmsnarl I feel like has fallen off really big.
So yeah, a couple of friends who I test teams with, they notably Scotty believes Grimmsnarl should be really good, and I'd be inclined to agree. It's got brilliant stats. It's actually quite offensive. One thing I forgot to mention about Incineroar, which also applies to Grimmsnarl, is it can afford to run Adamant in this meta because things aren't so overpowered. You don't need to live a Steel Spike behind Reflect or Light Screen. You don't need to EV for that too much. It's there are strong Steel type moves in the meta, but obviously nowhere near to what we used to. I don't know if screens are as valuable. They are good, of course, because of the damage mitigation. I don't know if they're as valuable in this meta, but as we know, Grimmsnarl has got a lot more tricks up its sleeve than just screens. You can do some pretty crazy things with it. However, nothing has really came out. Like, you don't see Grimmsnarl on, top tournament winning teams, really. I mean, I've seen a couple dotted here and there, but nothing consistent enough to tell me it's a major threat.
I think it's a victim of the power change because obviously giving a really strong legendary Pokemon or a really strong Dynamax Pokemon screens, giving them speed control. It can carry a lot more in those formats compared to this one, where the power level's a little lower.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So I think it still deserves a spot in B. I know I hovered over C, but I think it does have a niche on specific teams, but now it's a lot more situational than it used to be.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely not C. See, I'm stuck between B and low A. I do think like its offensive type in Fairy and Dark is really good. You could even possibly run a Frisk set if you wanted to. I know Jamie Boyd likes to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being able to, because it's base 125 attack, isn't it?
Yeah, it
If I'm
actually
not
does have a
mistaken.
good attack stat that's been overlooked because of all these restricted formats.
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't think people are building with it in mind as a physical threat. Like you've got Sucker Punch, you've got obviously Spirit Break, which is really good, especially in neuter and special attackers, which is hard to come by as well. It's got a really good kind of offensive and defensive type. Well, I say defensive. It is weak to Fairy and Steel, which is everywhere, so maybe not in this meta. But yeah, I don't know. I'll keep it in B for now because it hasn't really done anything. But I would not be surprised to see a Grimmsnarl like win at all.
Yeah, I'm gonna hover it in the B tier purely
Yeah.
because I haven't seen tournament results with it yet. But do keep an eye on it. Could creep up. However, one Pokemon I'm gonna make a case for is Buzzwole.
Yeah, well, take it away.
Yep. Okay. So Buzzwole
You are
carried
way
me.
more qualified to talk about this than me.
Buzzwole actually carried my run in the Rose Tower tournament this weekend. So Buzzwole specifically in this metagame has a really good defensive niche in that it switches into Landorus really well. It's really good against the pivot core, so you can see how it matches up against the S tiers. It goes into them. It has bug coverage for the grass. It has close combat for Incineroar. It can also threaten Porygon. Like, the top winning team, it actually matches really well against, but I never faced any of those in my tournament run, unfortunately. I ended up facing the Galarian Slowbro, and it absolutely destroys Buzzwole. So, unfortunately, yeah, I ran into some bad matchup issues. The opponent who I faced, really cool player, really cool team, but Slowbro-Galar was something that I did not prep for in the team building phase. But either way, I swear by Buzzwole. I think it's really good with any kind of speed control. Give it Trick Room, give it Tailwind. I think solid defensively and offensively, and definitely deserves a spot in the A tier, and people are overlooking it, in my opinion.
No, I'd agree with that. Your tournament result kind of speaks for itself. One thing that's worth mentioning as well is flying type moves are not as commonplace as they have been over the last 3 years because Max Airstream isn't a thing anymore. So, and with the likes of like Regieleki running around, flying types are, not in the best place in the meta. Obviously they still exist. Flying moves still exist, but nowhere near as common as they used to be. And you very rarely find the flying move on a Pokemon that doesn't have stab on it. So yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, but I can see why Buzzwole carried you so hard.
Yeah, I love it so much. It's so strong. I can't find Naganadel actually. Where's Naganadel? Because I feel like I really want to talk about Naganadel now. It's
I
really
really
shot.
want to talk about Naganadel as well.
I'm just getting lost in all these Pokemon. I swear it's here
Well,
though.
it should. If it's anywhere, it should be down the bottom with the
At the bottom.
Ultra Beasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't see it with the Ultra Beast. I can see. We'll get back to it later. Maybe I'll find it, or I'll find a placeholder. But I'll talk about Nihilego, which is another Ultra Beast with also poison typing and has shot up in popularity a fair bit.
Yeah. Where would I place this thing?
I think it's just above Buzzwole, in my opinion. I think it goes next to Urshifu because they tend to work together a lot of the time, I've seen.
Yeah. It's an interesting Pokemon because Urshifu Water can one-shot it, but it outspeeds Urshifu Water. Rillaboom can do about 80% to it with terrain. it matches up well into Rillaboom in an offensive sense. So it's an interesting Pokemon. In terms of it's volatile in a way, but against the main things like Rillaboom and Urshifu, one thing it does have is it completely destroys Incineroar, which being able to remove an Incineroar with one move is worth its weight in gold. So it's got that going for it. Obviously, it has Beast Boost like all the Ultra Beasts do, so its snowball potential is amazing. It's a tough one. I could see people making a case for it for S tier.
Yeah, that's true. I personally think the S tier belongs to Naganadel. I think Naganadel is slightly stronger, even though it doesn't check Incineroar as hard. But that is definitely up for debate. That's not a concrete opinion at all.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I would 110% agree with you. Naganadel is an S tier pick in this format. I don't think it's here, which is a shame. I've just had a little look there.
Oh, it's alright. We'll use Dragalge. Same typing. It's fine.
There you go. Yeah, Dragalge.
We have to get really creative with our placeholders here.
Yeah, that's it. Well, in fact, let me just have a one before we transform Dragalge into an Naganadel. I had me and a friend had an idea about Dragalge, and I built a team on Showdown. It was Life Orb, Dragalge. I was like, right, set Trick Room, get it in position. I got hit by a Snarl. I dropped the Draco Meteor on an Incineroar, and I think I'd done about 20% with a -1 Life Orb adaptability boosted Draco
Oh
Meteor.
no!
And as soon as that happened, I just binned the team, messaged my friend, and went, Dragalge's garbo.
Oh, that's so sad.
It's garbage. So yeah, for the record, Dragalge F tier.
Yeah.
But Naganadel, amazing typing, amazing Pokemon, amazing speed tier, amazing ability,
amazing coverage.
Great coverage. Yeah, great coverage. It is really good. It's a bit frail, but its resistances kind of make up for it. If you 4 times resist Grassy Glide, you're in a good position.
Yep.
If you resist fire and water, you're in a pretty good position. If you can kill Fini, Urshifu, Rillaboom, if it's not a Assault Vest, even if it is Assault Vest, you're doing 80% to it with a Sludge Bomb and no drawback, 100% accurate move. It's really, really good. So the team I've been using all format, I wouldn't say revolves around Naganadel, but Naganadel is like integral to how it operates. If you take Naganadel out, you have to redo the whole team. It won't function. So, yeah, I would S tier 100%. Really high in S tier as well.
Yeah, I used Naganadel in my tournament run as well, and yeah, I can agree. One other thing is there's only really one main electric type in this format, and it actually does really decently against Regieleki as well. That outspeeds it, but it doesn't really stop its pressure, which is really nice.
Yeah. If you think about the main teams, most of them have fire, water, grass, and sometimes electric, and being able to resist all of them things is again worth its weight in gold. It gives it a sense of bulk that it doesn't have because of its resistances, and then it can offensively pressure a lot of things. And what's really good about Naganadel, because of its speed tier and its snowball potential, it can create insane pins all the time. So like you can place pressure on a slot and know if I Sludge Bomb and Grassy Glide this, regardless of what my opponent does, I'm taking a KO on something.
Yeah, you just lock that space down. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And Naganadel's perfect for that kind of playstyle. And I really like that kind of playstyle. Force my opponent into pins and make them have to decide, what do I sack here.
Yeah, I do too. I did that a lot. Especially with this Pokemon I'm going to talk about next as well. Regieleki. I partnered them together and kept going Electro Web, like Sludge Bomb, and I kept just like doubling things and forcing pressure. Like I feel like Regieleki's really good at complementing that.
Definitely.
But one thing I will say is it feels weird, and I also bought Landorus here as well, because I feel like there's certain types that only have one good Pokemon covering that type. And I feel like Regieleki, I'm not saying it's like obviously the only Pokemon, but it's the only one you tend to see when you get to tournament level. You only really see Landorus on the ground type, and in this case, as we're talking about now, Regieleki on the electric. Because I feel like
Yeah.
other Pokemon don't really fill that niche as competently. Like I tried Thundurus, for example, and that didn't feel fantastic in terms of its utility. It just didn't feel as strong, and obviously it doesn't have the Dynamax option anymore. Whereas Regieleki
Yeah.
still is strong even without the Dynamax.
Oh yeah, Regieleki is crazy. Honorable mention to Zapdos. I do think Zapdos is good.
Where's Zapdos? Should be here. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so Regieleki S tier, Zapdos possibly S tier, probably A tier.
I
I've seen
don't
a
think
lot of it.
Zapdos has had enough results for. I think it could go into low A because it is on rain teams. It has been on a couple of tournament rain teams. I've seen that.
Yeah, well, I like Lucky Roost Rocky Helmet set, because you can stick around for a while. You have recovery, and you can chip things down. And flying and electric is quite good offensively into a lot of things. Obviously, a ground immunity is always nice, unless it roosts. But the thing that's hitting you with a ground move is faster than you anyway, usually in the Landorus, so you don't really care. So yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's a good Pokemon though. I'd feel bad about. I'd say low A, maybe low A, mid A. Definitely not the top of A. Did I say S tier before?
Yeah, you said
Did
S. You said low
I? Did
S.
I?
Yes,
Yeah, that's Gen 1 love coming out of me. I think.
of
Yeah,
course.
no, yeah,
Understandable.
no. I think it's a good Pokemon, but yeah, it's outshined by Regieleki. We kind of skipped over Regieleki there. It's base 200 speed. Crazy ability. Just gives it a free choice specs boost on its electric moves plus its stab. Um, it can be ran in a bunch of different ways. Regieleki as well. It can be ran like as a focus sash speed control set with pivoting and volt switch. It can be ran like on rain teams with thunder and life orb. I've seen that happen. Does insane damage. It can be ran with like Tapu Koko for rise and voltage. I'm not saying it's very good, but it can be done, and it can take
Oh, I've
game.
seen that. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
nasty on the wrong teams. If you lack your electric resist, you soon realize when they run that on you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, literally. And yeah, so Regieleki's really, considering how inflexible it actually is, it is actually pretty flexible in what it can do. It can set screens as well if you wanted to. Probably not too relevant in this meta,
Yeah.
but it can do that. And yeah, its speed here is just ridiculous. If you set up Tailwind in front of a Sash Regieleki and Electro Webs, yeah, it can Electro Web you one more time the next turn and basically negate the Tailwind that you've just set up, and that's pretty absurd.
I think I'm gonna
Um,
put Aleki just above Tsareena because I feel like it's the basis of a lot of more hyper offensive teams, and also you can put it on good stuff sometimes. Like if you don't want a
yeah.
Tailwinder, you can sometimes use Regieleki as a pseudo speed control of Electro Work.
Oh yeah, no, Regieleki. I wouldn't even describe it as pseudo. It's absolutely valid speed
Oh
control. If
yeah.
it's
Okay.
got a focus sash, you're getting more often than not you're getting two hits off.
Mhm.
One thing Regieleki has against it is its terrible bulk. So the most kind of successful Regieleki teams that I've seen, I know NeoVGC used it quite a bit, is paired with Tsareena because it's so susceptible to fake out and like for example, like yeah, I leave Rillaboom, Urshifu water, I fake out Ice Edge and strikes, and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Or well, that's in a vacuum. Obviously, something could switch in, but it's very susceptible to fake out plays which are everywhere. That's one thing it doesn't have going for it. And with Urshifu being able to ignore protects, um, yeah, it's not as it doesn't feel as oppressive as it did in Dynamax formats, but it is still pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't place it any higher, but it is still an S. But I can't place it any
Yeah.
higher because it mainly loses to speed control pretty hard, and it loses to bulk. Like if it gets out bulked, it's not happy. It doesn't trade too well into other things. But if it's getting like the attack off and it combos into things, it's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
So next we are going to talk about Landorus. I've actually played with Landorus quite a bit this format, but I ended up dropping it because I realized that teams don't actually need a ground type anymore. But still a really good option. Definitely high A, low S. I know it's on a lot of really strong teams. It was on the winning team in the Rose Tower, part of UX9's core, Joe UX9's core. I remember that.
Yeah, Joe and Battle Room both used it. I actually played Joe as well. I lost.
Got pretty unlucky though. I saw it.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you lose game 2 to a miss, then in my opinion, you shouldn't have lost game 1. So I'm not gonna go on about it.
That's fair. That's fair. That's a good way of looking at it too.
Yeah, but yeah, Landorus matches up pretty negatively into itself, which is kind of good. It's a bit of its own check.
They just wall each other. Yeah, they just kind of stand there
Yeah.
menacingly.
Yeah, just whoever gets the sludge bomb crit wins. Yeah, so it's brilliant, isn't it? It's a flying type and ground type, so it is immune to electric attacks and ground attacks. It's got sheer force, so pair that with a life orb, you don't take any damage, but you're getting a crazy multiplier on your moves. Yeah, it's just a really good point. It's a bit one dimensional. You kind of know what to expect from it when you look at it. There is counterplay. Fun fact: no bulk Landorus dies to a Grassy Glide and Aqua Jet double up.
Yeah.
So that keeps it out of S tier for me.
I will say, definitely on the more recent teams, a lot of people are running modest bulky Landorus. I've seen that actually really rise up.
Yeah, which makes sense. I know on Joe and Battle Room's Lilligan Torkoal team, they were running min speed, like crazy amount of bulk Landorus. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but I'm sure it lived the Surgeon Strikes from like a jolly Sash Urshifu. So
wow.
Yeah, that's one crazy way to run it, and it was underspeeding Incineroars as well during the tournament, which is pretty cool in Trick Room. But yeah, it's just a bit one dimensional. It's really good. It's got a good speed here, but a little bit one dimensional. And like you say, not every team needs a ground type, so I think high A is fair enough for it.
Yeah. And speaking of also on the UX9 core, Porygon is certainly something that's started to see a rise in play, especially at the last tournament.
Oh yeah, it makes sense. The thing's crazy. It's actually crazy.
Yeah, and it can actually run coverage this time. It doesn't have to run foul play.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't have to invest everything in bulk. The first team I built, which I won the London Corviknight Tour with, I think there was about 80 players in the tournament as well, so it wasn't small.
Yeah, it was pretty big for a ladder tour. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so the team I had centered around Porygon 2, but it was a modest Porygon 2.
Yes.
So the way the team operated, it was pretty weird. I had Galarian Weezing, which, hot take, I'm going to rate that pretty highly. Basically, it was about stacking download boosts whilst cycling, intimidating, controlling terrain. It was a crazy team. It took a little while for me to even learn how to use it, even though I built it. But yeah, Porygon 2 basically is just this bulky thing that can recover. It's got speed control. It's got good coverage and Bolt Beam, Ice Beam, and Thunderbolt. Tri-attack hits hard, especially with a download boost. The fact it can just get a free, we've seen it with Asian, haven't we? Free boost at the start of a turn and nothing to scoff at. And this thing can really do damage as well as just sit there and be annoying the whole game, and it can just end game things. I put it in S tier. The power level has reduced down because there's no Dynamax. There's no way to stat drop, really. I mean, obviously there is, but it's niche. You can't like Phantasm its partner and drop its defense and then hit it with a really powerful move anymore. It's quite hard to remove, and yeah, I think it's a really good Pokemon. Was not surprised to see it win at all.
I think I'm going to put it in mid-S. It could technically be higher at this point, I think, but we need to see if it's just like consistent, because it's mainly rose up in this last tournament, honestly. Like, it's been surprisingly absent in most ladder tours, but I think it could easily pick up, and I guess we'll see if there's another big tour. What if Porygon is really like the real deal or not? But I suspect it is, and I suspect it might go higher if we make a tier list like this in the future. We'll see.
Oh yeah, definitely. One thing as well, it's like I've tried to build with Porygon on like I say hard Trick Room team, not necessarily hard Trick Room, but a kind of a 4-mon Trick Room team with like 2-mon fast mode. And it's not very well suited to that. It's kind of a standalone mon which you can click Trick Room on it if it makes sense at the time.
Yeah.
The thing's crazy bulky and it hits hard. That's all you need to know. And yeah, I'm not surprised it wouldn't at all.
Absolutely. So I bought Poliwrath here, sorry, ages ago, because this is my placeholder for Urshifu-Water. So
yeah,
where do you rate it? Because I think a lot of people think right now, especially because it was on the the winning tour, that it is better than Urshifu-Dark right now. It's in a better spot.
Yeah, it is. I think it is.
Where's the thing that it competes with? Let me have a look at the Tapus. There we go. So the main thing that tend to fight for a spot on most good stuff teams is Urshifu or Tapu-Fini. So it's deciding between both of these. I think both are pretty viable, honestly.
Well, is a fun fact. On my team that I've been using near enough all season, apart from the Weezing Porygon team I told you about. So I've won 2 ladder tournaments with it. I went 6-2, bubbled at Nino Pokebros with it. I'm in an OPL team and I'm 3-0 at the moment, and I've used this team the entire time. And my team is Tornadus, Naganadel, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Tapu-Fini, and Urshifu-Water.
You use both? Wow.
Yes, and it works. So Tapu-Fini was the last addition to the team because we were struggling with like Torkoal Trick Room stuff, and we realised that Tapu-Fini can massively help in that matchup. You can Calm Mind if you get a chance. You can set Misty Terrain to stop the Lilligant from just sleeping everything. It offered a lot of value in that matchup, which is why we added it. And then as team developed, we started looking at other matchups it could help, and the thing's crazy. Like on the weekend, I played an absolutely awful matchup, and I realised that if I can get 2 Calm Minds off with Finny, I should win. It's just whether my opponent will let me do that, and I did in both games and won the set 2-0. Because Finny's potential is crazy. I don't like the spec set. I do like the Calm Mind leftover set personally. But of course, it depends on the team.
I think the scary thing about the Calm Mind leftovers is that things that you think are checks to it suddenly don't become checks if you get 2 Calm Mind boosts. Just a win con by itself.
Exactly. And then, so Urshifu-Water, 3 crit move. It kind of negates Focus Sashes on certain things. Like Focus Sash Nihilego used to be a thing. It can't really be a thing anymore. I mean, it can, but it does. It's not as effective with Urshifu knocking around.
Yeah, what cost?
Yeah, really good water type, really good strong water type. Gives you a fighting type as well. Obviously, it ignores Protect. It's got a decent speed tier. Yeah, I mean, Incineroars are EVing to live. Surgeon Strikes with a berry. So you've got to dedicate an item slot and a bunch of EVs to just live in one hit from this thing. Ignores Intimidate. Yeah, it's S tier. I mean, the amount Urshifu carried me, I think it's like high S tier. I think it's up there with maybe just below. That's a debate in itself. You could probably do a Twitter poll of Finny or Urshifu-Water, and I think it would be pretty split. Yeah,
that's why I'm going to put them next to each other. I think that's appropriate.
Yeah,
I think just because it's been slightly more established, I think I'm going to put Finny just above. I know that Urshifu did have some really good showings over the weekend, but I think Finny as well because it offers terrain utility. It's one of the main things that you can do to shuffle around stuff like Rillaboom that has, terrain control. I feel like terrain is really valuable when the power level goes down a bit.
Oh, definitely, especially Misty Terrain. Like when I mean, good players can identify lose cons, and identifying lose cons is just as important as identifying win cons. And if you can sit there in a good position, a good board state, and think, how do I lose this? Oh, I lose this to a 10% freeze. Well, a Tapu-Fini switching can eliminate that possibility.
Yeah.
So it's a really good kind of nonsense checker, RNG manipulating thing. Like I wouldn't know how to word it, but
Yeah.
it stops them dice rolls, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know in my top cut match with Finny, I think I won a 1v3 with Finny by basically the opponent killed the rest of my team, but I got up too many calm minds and they couldn't do anything. Finny just sets up loads of situations like that. And I was very lucky to even take a game against that person because the team was so strong against the rest of me. But Tapu-Fini, once it's set up, just, I took out their Rillaboom and it just fell apart. Even though, in theory, they had this poison coverage with their Galarian Slowbro, they couldn't touch it.
Exactly. That's the power of Finny. I've got a video on my YouTube. It's literally Tapu-Fini. Its partners get killed, and Tapu-Fini just clicks Calm Mind about 4 or 5 times and just sweeps the reverse sweeps a 1v4, and it was like a Naganadel, another Finny, an Incineroar, and an Indeedee, and it completely just wiped reverse sweeps the whole team. So
that's
crazy. Finny's strong.
Yeah, Finny's really, really good. Like, I rate it. I always swear by Finny. Every time there's a format where Finny is good with the calm mindset, I almost always use it. It's my comfort in most formats, honestly. It's very easy to play, very fun to set up with. I'm just looking for Politoed. I'm not sure if it's here, but I'm fine with just Pelliper. Oh, there's Tyranitar as well. So let's talk about the weather setters in this format, because I feel like the main one that stood out was Torkoal, especially with the first big result that it got in the first big tour.
Yeah.
Battle Room, Trick Room, Court.
I mean, that was player difference. That Colin goes nuts with Trick Room.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, so personally, funnily enough, I was having this conversation with somebody about an hour before we started doing this tier list, but I don't think that team is actually consistent. I mean, call me stupid because it won a tour and he went undefeated with it, but I've watched all of them games and my God, Colin was playing out of his mind. He really was. So I do think it was more player skill, player difference that won that tournament. The team is obviously functioning and it's really good, but it's very read heavy. You've got to know. You've got to make that gamble of, like, especially if you like Lilligant Torkoal, do I Sleep Powder? Do I Leaf Storm? Is this going to switch in? Are they going to set terrain? Do I need to set my terrain? What are they going to do? What's their counterplay? And, a player like Colin can assess that situation and, make very informed decisions, which is why he's such a good pilot of the team. But, yeah, it's still pretty read heavy and very psychological with your opponent.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I always feel like it's a problem with these hard Trick Room cores that, when they come into a tournament and no one's prepared for it, it's much easier to dominate when you don't know your lines into the team. But once it's established, you start to understand that. And I feel like the inflexibility of a hard Trick Room team means they have to constantly innovate the core itself and develop it. They can't just remain stagnant. So I feel like Torkoal is just harder to just, slap on a team compared to everything else. I definitely think it deserves to be low B if it's anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the things Torkoal's got going for it. It's got crazy spread move. Like crazy strong spread move. Like, it's the Kyogre of this format, isn't it? But obviously needs different types to be controlled Kyogre. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Weather's nice. It weakens Urshifu Water's Surging Strikes, which is nice. High B, low A for me.
I'm gonna... Okay, well, I'll put it in the B tier because I think it's something that requires a bit too much team support to place it too high. But I think it definitely deserves a spot because of its output, like, in the right situation.
Definitely.
But the other weather setters, again, Politoed hasn't really had established results. I can't really find it either, but let's talk about Pelliper. I don't think Pelliper is there yet, honestly. I mean, it looks good on paper until you realise that it's got not much speed and not much bulk.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It can chunk Rillaboom, it can chunk Incineroar. It's got that going for it. Weather's nice. It's actually a pseudo check to that Trick Room team. By just having a Pelliper on your team, you really make that matchup a lot more
Oh
comfortable
yeah,
for
that is
yourself.
true. Yeah.
It gets access to Wide Guard, it gets access to Tailwind. Um, I want to say low B because once we start getting into this list, there's things that can do something, and there's things that can do nothing. And I feel like Pelipper can do more than just something, but it's not like very good, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
speaking of other weather setters, I feel like Tyranitar was really popular early. Like I remember
oh yeah,
people using it all the time, but I think as soon as things developed and they became this firegrass water that it absolutely hates, I feel like it's just
yeah,
too
I was,
niche.
yeah, I was just about to say, it doesn't like seeing any of the big three, which is Rillaboom, Incineroar, Urshifu Water. It doesn't like seeing any of them.
I think it's a bit
I
of a
mean, it
death
can't.
sentence for it.
Yeah, kind of like seeing Incineroar, but Incineroar is going to nerf its output before it gets a chance to do anything. Rillaboom just dismantles it. Urshifu absolutely destroys it. Yeah, it's a shame. It's tough. I'd probably say Gigalith and Hippowdon are probably better in this meta. As bad as that sounds, if you really want to go sand, if you really want to go sand, I'd probably say Gigalith and Hippowdon are better just for the bulk, and the fact that they're not 4 times weak to anything.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Tyranitar, I guess you could consider it for the dark typing, because obviously it's offensively okay into things. Like, I guess if you got Tyranitar in Trick Room, and then it just requires too much.
I
And on
mean,
a lot
if
of.
if you get if
Yeah.
you get Tyranitar in Trick Room, they just bring the Rillaboom in. I mean, that's just I don't know. I know that can be said about Hippowdon and Gigalith as well, but I feel like it needs a sash.
Yeah, and you can't really have that on a Pokemon that has such like high defensive stats and then you're sashing it. It just doesn't feel very good.
Exactly.
I feel like again, it can be just about considered because it gives sand, and you don't have many options for that. Do you think
Oh yeah.
Gigalith's better though? Did you say Gigalith's better in your opinion?
I mean, I've I've not necessarily tested it, but I was looking into Gigalith. I've been looking into loads of obscure Pokemon because I'm competing in the High Roller Draft in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I need to, I've been trying to familiarize myself with a bunch of different Pokemon that I might not have looked at in the past. And I looked at Gigalith, and it's got really good stats. Really, it's really slow, decent HP stat, quite high attack stat, good defense stat. Obviously, it's a weather setter, which is always nice. It's worth its weight in gold. Is Gigalith better than T-Tar? I mean, I don't think there's much in
I
it.
think that's a stretch. I'm not sure.
Do you think?
Yes, because I feel like Tyranitar offers the dual typing, whereas Gigalith, its only real attack is like rock. And I feel like you have to have some kind of niche in having like that additional coverage. I feel like having dark is at least something you can use offensively. Whereas Gigalith like
Yeah.
requires speed control, and then its damage output isn't great because of the rock coverage.
Yeah, yeah, I understand what you mean. It bothers me that Tyranitar is just so weak to the big three.
Yeah, it is.
That's all that kind of puts me off it. But yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Offensively, Tyranitar is a lot better.
Mm-hmm. But it's still C tier. Like I can't see it being anywhere outside of
Yeah.
that. All right, so I want to move on to more niche Pokemon because I know we've filled up the S tier. We talked about all the really good stuff earlier. Let's talk about because I've seen people use Rotom-Wash. I feel like it's not an auto pick by any means, but again, it has options. It has Nasty Plot. It has utility moves like Will-O-Wisp, which Burn is actually okay in this format. Decent
Yeah.
in certain things.
It's Rotoms will always have a niche in these like non-restrictive formats. Even sometimes in restrictive formats, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, what's it got going for it? It's got good typing in water and electric. It's only weak to grass. Um, Unfortunately, there's a certain grass monkey running around at the top of
Yeah,
S tier.
it doesn't
That
like
keeps it,
metagames when there's too many good grass types. And yeah, that is
yeah.
there's a
I
plethora.
mean, yeah. I mean, even if like there's not even too many good grass types. It's just because Rillaboom's got that crazy move. Um, that's literally what keeps it. I think the amount of moves it can run, it sometimes feels like it's got four move slot syndrome. You know, you've got protect, nasty plot, ally switch if you're that way inclined, will-o-wisp, obviously your two stabs. Yeah, it's a really good mon, but it's held back by its weakness to grass.
It's also held back as well by, I think, it trades bad into neutral matchups. Like, for example,
Yeah,
Naganadel, for example, Regieleki. If you think about both of those in on paper, it's not like too swayed, but the power level of all these newer Pokemon just give it so much trouble. Even something like Buzzwole, for example, can trade it one-on-one, even though in theory they both hit each other for neutral. Just power creep, I feel, has really caught up to Rotom in its bulk. So that low HP is really starting to kick in.
yeah. Even like you kind of have to max its HP for it to do anything.
Yeah.
That's another thing people don't talk about. So what you're doing with that is you're maxing out your HP, but then you're sacrificing speed and power, um, just so it's usable. Yeah, yeah. I didn't consider that. Yeah, its bulk is pretty bad.
I feel like I'm going to put it in high B purely because I have seen it get some tournament usage. Definitely saw, I think,
Yeah,
one or two in a couple of my tournament runs, but I can't place it any higher. It's not winning tournaments. It's not like consistent enough for me to put any higher right now.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. I never see a Rotom and think, oh, what? I don't want to deal with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So are there any Pokemon that you want to talk about?
Yeah, actually, there is.
Go for it.
I want to talk about Galarian Weezing.
All right. There it is. Okay. All right.
Right. So, other than the ladder tour I won with it, it hasn't had any tournament results, and you don't see it. However, I think this thing is very, very, very good. Maybe not that good. And the reason I say that is because it's got a very high natural defense stat, and if you max out its HP, it's relatively bulky, and that's kind of what you need from it. You don't have to invest basically anything into its special attack for it to do damage into the things you need it to do damage into. So it matches up very favorably. Like this is purely from an offensive sense. Favorably into Rillaboom. Well, I suppose unless it's running high horsepower. Um, Pretty favorably into Urshifu, and it can trade quite effectively with Incineroar if it's a 1v1 as well. The main strength of Galarian Weezing comes from its ability neutralizing gas. So this ability has so many hundreds, thousands of unique interactions with different board states, and knowing how to use it is a kind of a weird skill in itself. And what Galarian Weezing puts your opponents through is nothing short of absolute torture. So being able to manipulate the board state in the way Galarian Weezing allows you to by shutting off abilities is massive, and it can completely skew and sway matches because your opponent doesn't ever have to use this part of their brain when they're playing. But now all of a sudden you're making them have to consider all these possible plays you could possibly do with it.
It changes the
And
game in a way, yeah.
it honestly does. It completely changes the way everything's played, and that is what I love about it. And then being able to master when how to use it and when to use it is like I haven't mastered it, but I'm pretty decent at it because I always try and use it whenever I feel like it could be viable. So the team I had built, it was centered around. I mentioned it before. It was centered around Porygon 2 stack and download boosts. So there was a scenario where there was an Urshifu in front, and I think it was Urshifu Rillaboom, and I led Urshifu Water. I led Incineroar and Porygon 2. So straight away, I've got an Intimidate down. My Porygon 2 ran Protect, Recover. I think it was Try Attack and Ice Beam. It was either Thunderbolt or Ice Beam. I can't really remember. But it was Ice Beam actually. Yeah. So what you can do is you can switch into Weezing on the Incineroar slot, Protect with Porygon 2. They usually fake out and either go for your Incineroar, or they might even go for a close combat on your Porygon 2. Maybe fake out the Incineroar, go for a close combat you've protected. You can then switch Weezing out, and because you've got a Rillaboom and an Urshifu on the other side of the field, you're going to be getting a download boost again when you switch Weezing out, because the abilities activate again. And then you can switch Incineroar back in to get another Intimidate, meaning that the close combat that's coming at you is doing barely any damage. It's doing about 30% because it's got a double Intimidate down on it, and you've got a +2 on your special attack. So if the Urshifu's not Sash, you can drop it with a Try Attack. You can do massive damage to the Rillaboom with Ice Beam, and then because the grassy terrain's happening and stuff, you just the amount of plays you can make with Weezing being able to shut off abilities, and your opponent relies on their abilities. We all do when we play. So knowing that a Protect, like when you've got Urshifu, you're used to just being able to aim attacks into anything you want without worrying about Protect, but all of a sudden Weezing makes you like have to play around that with the Urshifu and stuff. There's loads of cool things you can do with terrains as well. Like there was times when I'd switch out my Weezing when Tapu-Fini was on the field, Rillaboom was on the opposite end, and I grassy terrain up because I switched in later. You can switch out Weezing, and then Misty Terrain will activate because my Fini is slower than the Rillaboom, meaning that any kind of like combos they're going for don't go the way they wanted to and stuff. Yeah, there's cool things you can do with this Pokemon, and it matches up really well into the standard Fire Water Grass core. So there's my case for Weezing. I think it's really good, and its typing is pretty cool as well, Poison and Fairy. And it weakens Regieleki massively, and Landorus. It weakens both of them by just being on the field, which is really good. Skews a lot of clocks.
I feel like myself, in terms of Weezing, I do think that its ability to switch off abilities is actually pretty solid, especially with like all of the S tiers. It's relevant against every single S tier pretty much, other than the Ultra Beasts, I'd say, because it doesn't really affect like the immediate board state of the Ultra Beasts. But
yeah,
in terms of its utility as a utility mon, I definitely think it has niche. But it hasn't been established yet. That's the main thing going against me placing it too high. I definitely think it could be considered low A, high B in that case. I think it. Sorry, no, low A, high B. That's what I meant.
yeah.
I think I have to put it.
I'd say high B.
I think I have to put it in B purely because of proven results. That's it, really. But
I mean, I want an 80-person ladder tournament with
it. Oh, okay.
I know
okay.
That's not a major result.
High B. That's still, yeah. It's not been established, but that's still pretty decent. I'll give you that.
To be fair, that was very early meta.
Yeah.
Things hadn't stabilized yet. I kind of took advantage of the fact things weren't stable by throwing Weezing into the mix and just playing pretty good with it. But yeah, no, Weezing will have its day at some point. I'm pretty sure that the ability to turn off other abilities is it's amazing. Basically, it's nothing short of a game breaker.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would not surprise me if somebody picked Weezing up at some point in whatever meta game and built something that is absolutely meta breaking with Weezing.
I could see it.
It's crazy. I love it.
So next, I'm going to talk about something that works in one format, and then you turn down the power level and it gets worse. So this might be surprising to some people who may have seen the restricted formats and saw that Shedinja is actually a real nuisance in some certain teams like Rain, especially in the, I think it was the, what was it? Was it like Thunderous, Shedinja, Kyogre-zation? It was like a Rain core that a lot of the really strong French players were using. Pretty much most
French
of the season.
Rain.
I remember that. Yeah. But switch it over to a format where there's more coverage and there's less hugely powerful, like more predictable move typings, and yeah, Shedinja really suffers. So solid F tier,
Yeah,
I think.
definitely, definitely. And the fact that sand and hail are both more viable as well. If you've got a focus sash
Oh, you
Shedinja,
reminded me.
yeah, if you've got a focus, yeah, Alola Ninetales.
Yeah, we've got to
If
that
you've got
next.
a focus sash Shedinja and the opponent has a Tyranitar or Alola Ninetales, you essentially have 5 Pokemon on team preview, because it's going to get struck by hail or sand at some point. Most likely, should I say?
I'm just looking for Ninetales. I feel like I'm blind again. Don't know if you can see it.
It was definitely there. Is it near the top?
I mean, I see regular Ninetales.
Alola not go on there.
Nah, we'll use the regular spray. It's fine.
Yeah, another placeholder.
Yeah. I feel like Ninetales has actually dropped off. It's still okay. I definitely feel like it has to be sashed because there's certain things in S tier that are really annoying for it and force it to sash.
Yeah.
And also, I think Kartana is like an occasional thing that pops up. I think Kartana especially is more popular in ladder tours, but we'll get onto that later. So Ninetales again was a really popular choice day one. I remember a lot of people running Aurora Veil and clicking Blizzard and killing Landorus and hurting Rillaboom, and it was great. But I feel like the metagame's gotten too bulky, and they don't care as much about it setting up, and they also don't care about it hitting them with Ice type because everything is EV to be bulky now, and it really sucks for it.
Exactly, and a Sash Urshifu has a chance to KO with Surge. Like a combo of Fake Out and Surge and Strikes can KO a no bulk Sash Ninetales, which, you know, considering it's not it's not a super effective hit. It's just like, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I feel like it's fallen off a fair bit. What a shame.
Yeah, it has some good things going for it. Obviously, its typing is pretty nice. Offensively anyway. Obviously, it outspeeds and kills Landorus, which is, just a nice option to have. Weather setting's pretty cool, in a format where, against the wrong team, Torkoal can run away with things. So, being able to just set the hail and reduce that damage is nice. But yeah, overall, I'd agree with you. It's kind of fell off, hasn't it?
Yeah, just a bit. What a shame. So yeah, mentioning Kartana, I feel like again this is more prominent on ladder. I've seen a lot of Kartana on ladder, but once you get to tournament, you tend to see more Tsareena and Rillaboom from experience.
Yeah. I think Kartana's very good, slightly outclassed by Rillaboom, but on the right team with its coverage, it is better than what Rillaboom. It's situational on the team. Rillaboom's more slappable, but on the right team, Kartana fits better.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, obviously, as we know, it's got Beast Boost. Thing hits like a truck when it takes KOs. It's getting attack boosts. Incineroar, it's not Incineroar's best friend, but it could be played around. Pretty solid ATM on, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in mid A, low A. I rate Buzzwole right now, so I'm gonna put it just below. So let me shuffle a bit. I'm gonna put Zapdos here because tournament results, and also I'm biased. But yeah, let's talk about Registeel. So if you've played any high ladder, you will see a lot of protect the Registeel teams that will use Rillaboom, Incineroar, and just pivot indefinitely while Registeel sets up on you. And it's not a very fun experience if you don't have an answer for it. But the main thing that holds Regieleki back from Registeel back from tournament play is there's a lot of weird blanket checks to it. It's very vulnerable to taunt. As soon as you taunt a Registeel, that's your entire game plan gone. And a lot of teams on ladder, especially, dedicated to it so hard that I feel like you can't really commit that hard to it realistically in this kind of environment. I feel like it's a bit too hostile to it.
Yep. It will win a showdown tournament, possibly. it will not win a card tournament. It's not the in-game timer is not kind to it. So
Oh, that is
I
true.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that's why it doesn't see many major tournament runs, um, because it can just be so easily timed out. Like as soon as a Registeel presses Iron Defense or Amnesia on me, that's it. I'm taking my time. I'm setting grassy terrain. I'm watching them animations. I'm going to get a drink in between turns because Leech Seed and grassy terrain's going off. And I mean, yeah, it's so easily timed. It's a really good showdown mon, and it's a big threat. It clicks Amnesia, it clicks Iron Defense, it protects, it heals up with leftovers, it body presses things. It's got such a wacky high defensive stats as well, so it does become unkillable. But its partners don't, and if you can just kill its partners and keep a Pokemon advantage and whittle down the timer, that thing is no problem at all in game. Showdown is a different story because showdown timer does not work the same as in game.
Do you think that makes it a beta?
Honestly, yeah, yeah.
All right.
If we're talking straight, if the game was played on showdown, it would be probably a high A tier. But yeah, it's so vulnerable to timer. And like you say, a lot of teams are kind of playing protect the Registeel. So if you can take a few KOs early, but take your time enough. There's actually an art to timer stall, and you don't want to let your opponent know you're doing it too much early on. So maybe take 15, 20 seconds on your first few moves. Position yourself into taking KOs. But then as soon as that Registeel has got all my friends are dead syndrome, that's when you start taking the 45 seconds.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
But yeah, no, I don't rate it just because in-game timer.
Nice. So speaking of showdown, and I mean this did get a tournament finish, so we'll talk about these two together. I think Lele always goes above Drifblim because it can function by itself, but they're generally seen
Yeah.
together, generally make that hyper offensive core when they set up Tailwind, Lele hits you hard, and then they'll have offensive stuff in the back to just punch holes in a team. So
Yeah. Um, it depends. Obviously, Drifblim by itself. Obviously, it only really stands next to Lele, or should I say, floats
yeah.
next to Lele. Um, yeah, but I mean, BT is probably fair. Lele's high BT. The thing's got crazy damage output. Position it right, and it can blow through things. It feels slightly limited in its coverage. Like things can I know that can be said about anything, but common things can be like kind of blanket checks to it, like Heatran, for example. It doesn't really touch Heatran and things like that. But yeah, Lele's got great damage output. I think high BT is fair for it, and it's a terrain setter, which is nice.
I think I might even consider putting Drifblim in high C. I think like it's just so reliant on that one particular setup and particular lead that it becomes predictable. I feel like
Yeah,
no, it just struggles. Like as soon as you send like Rillaboom on it, Incineroar on it,
yeah, it's rare. It's rarely passive as well. Like
yes.
rare. Like don't get me wrong, it's annoying. It's really annoying. So like it can set its teammates up for success, but if you can ignore it. There are game states where you can literally ignore the Drifblim and it's not really doing anything, and you're just out bulking, living the Lele hits and just KOing the partners.
Yeah,
And they're always so scared to switch it out because they don't want to lose the unburden.
it feels a bit like a ladder hero. Yeah, I definitely feel
Yeah,
that. Uh,
definitely.
so another ghost type that has seen a bit more tournament usage, and I think is actually okay, is Gengar. I definitely think it sits in the B tier, but
Yeah, I rate Gengar. I like it. Good speed here. I like poison in this format.
yes, great move
Um,
pool too.
yeah, like Icy Wind. Trick Room or Imprison Trick Room. It gets imprisoned, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. You can use it as an imprisoned Trick Room on Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb. It's got decent speed stat. Pretty good special attack stat. Obviously, it functions as a kind of a glass well, not really a cannon anymore, but like glass cannony stats. Good type and can't be faked out, which is nice. It can be annoying. It can be annoying to deal with. I have lost to quite a few Gengar before, so in this format. So yeah, I like Gengar.
It's cool. I think the main thing that just holds it back is its bulk. Like, I feel like
Yeah,
it's got a solid typing, and if it had a little bit more stats,
yeah,
or if it
yeah.
still had
If
Levitate, of course.
yeah, if it was Mega Gengar, then it would be a lot higher.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably put it just below Rotom because I feel like Rotom's more like, I don't know, see more Rotom. I know Gengar had like a decent tournament finish in the first tour, but I don't think it's transitioned well over into this one. I don't think I saw any. I think it's fallen off.
I do feel like Rotom and Gengar should be below all of the others that are there right now.
Oh, you
Like
think? Yeah, okay.
Grimmsnarl, Registeel, Ninetales, Torkoal, Pelliper. I think they're Pelliper.
Nah, I'll leave Pelliper because I think it's just
Yeah,
barely like hanging on its niche.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
about.
definitely. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think Gengar's better than Pelliper.
Yeah. Right.
It,
Oh yeah, I forgot this existed. Let's just put that.
let's just put
Well, that is an alternative, but I really think you'll want to use Ninetales over Abomasnow's fairly scary weaknesses like Poison's a type now. You got Incineroar. I don't think I'm going to give this too much time. Just
no, yeah. Incineroar one shots you without any kind of investment.
like, there's just too much lurking around to capitalize on. I guess in theory you could get it up in a hard trick room, but it's just not really worth the effort.
Yeah.
Speaking of hard trick room, I have a little bit of trauma to share with you all. So is there a Galarian Slowbro anywhere? I really want to talk about Galarian Slowbro real quick. There we go. Perfect. Slowking, sorry. I feel like Slowking is used more over Bro, so I'll talk only about King because I've seen it come up a couple of times on ladder. I do think it's low B, like very, very low B. But
have you seen its stats? I was looking into it today, and its stats are pretty good. Like, it's got really good Trick Room Sweeper stats. I didn't realize, to be honest, how it's deceiving. Like,
so
I can imagine you run into it, and you're a Buzzwole player, and you see where I'm going with this.
yeah, so to those of you who don't know, sadly the recording was lost, but I lost Top Cut to someone who was using Specs Slowking, and it absolutely devastated my entire team. So my team was what, Incineroar, Naganadel, Buzzwole, Tapu-Fini, Regieleki, and Cresselia, and it just completely like wiped the floor with my entire team. I couldn't touch it. I had to like set up Finny on it, which was awful because they were just hitting me with Spec Sludge Bombs. Honestly, it was a threat to my specific team. I don't know if it transfers over to the main core though, because obviously Landorus is quite popular. Landorus is really good at effectively dealing with it, obviously outside of Trick Room. And there's also some other things that give it trouble. Like Incineroar is still annoying for it. Snarling, dark coverage, you know. It does need Trick Room to function. So I cannot place it any higher than B because it is team reliant. But in the right hands, yeah, I'm scared of that thing. I'm traumatized for life now. After the experience I faced, I'm not sleeping on it again. Like, low B.
And it gets access to Expanding Force as well, which if you're not prepared for, can punch holes. It can really punch holes.
And also, everyone who doesn't know, remember it gets Flamethrower. It can destroy your grass types.
And your steel types, which you think are safe.
Types, yeah. Nothing safe on this thing. Just make sure it doesn't get in the situation it wants to with Trick Room or whatever.
What ability was it? Was it Curious Medicine or was it Regenerator that you faced?
Regenerator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still shook. Okay. So Komodo is a Pokemon that I believe I saw Samvi using it in the first tour. I'm surprised I didn't see more of it because I think it's actually a really, really good body press mon. I feel like it's actually better than Registeel, specifically.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's maybe yeah, probably the best body press one. It stabs body press, which is a
Yes,
massive plus.
it's better in game because you can get to the point where you kill everything quicker because you have your fighting typing.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Timer doesn't work as well against this thing. It doesn't really work against this thing because, like you say, the immediate damage output you get from the stab body press means the games just go quicker. Less setup is required. It's actually got a pretty good defensive type, and obviously, it's like Ferrothorn. You don't position your Ferrothorn in front of fire types. You don't position this thing in front of fairy types. But it's like if you look at the top three mons, which people would argue is your Rillaboom, your Incineroar, and your Urshifu. It's matching up really well into all three of them.
My prediction is there is going to be a tournament. If there's enough Spikemuth tournaments, there'll be one tournament where everyone forgets this thing exists and it will win. I think, but that is a hot take.
No, I wouldn't be surprised to see that either. Even like
it'll be everyone switches to Urshifu over Fini, and then it just dominates.
Yeah, that was another reason I had Fini on the team was because I wanted like 3 checks really to Como because I do respect it as a Pokemon. I really do. It can run away with games, and if you're not prepared for it in team building, it can completely just 1v6 your entire team if you don't respect it. So no, I think low A tier is a fair place to put it.
Absolutely. Another body press mon that I think is better actually not running body press is Ferrothorn. I don't think it goes into A tier just yet. I think it's too niche, but I do think its coverage is very good. I do think it gets one of the strongest steel moves in the meta right now in Gyro-Ball. So a lot of things are quite fast. I think this thing is best banded, honestly. I think banded
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it actually goes into a lot of stuff, good stuffs. You band it and you hit things really hard. I think that's the way you run it. And I think it's outclassed as a body presser, but I do think it has a niche outside of that.
Yeah.
That's a hot take though. That's not.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know about band. I mean, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it work. I'll be honest, I've got a bit of PTSD off Ferrothorn from the weekend. Yeah, the thing, my opponent, my last round. So for those of you who don't know, I went 3-0. In round 4, played Tabu. It was a bad matchup. Tabu's a really, really good player. Got beat 2-0. I wasn't too upset about it. You sometimes you pull the bad matchup and you think it's a good player, it's a bad matchup. I've kind of got to make I've got to play out my mind to get anything out of this. Tabu didn't let me, fair enough. Played Joe UX9 in round 5, lost game 1, got a bit unlucky in game 2. That kind of thing can happen. You give a player like Joe an inch, he'll take a mile, that's fair enough. And then I get to the last round and I see the team and I'm thinking, this is great. This is food for my team. This is fine. Last game, lost the roll on a Porygon 2, which endgame my Incineroar, lost the roll on a Flare Blitz. It lived on about 2 HP and then recovered, and then that was it. It was just a slow death from there. And then game 2, this Ferrothorn, which I'd not stuck a fighting type move on it. So I lead Naganadel and Urshifu. They lead Porygon and Politoed. And I aim a Sludge Bomb and the Close Combat into the Porygon 2 slot, thinking if they switch into anything, nothing wants to take this combo. And they switch into the Ferrothorn. Obviously, Sludge Bomb doesn't do anything, and it's Chople Berry. And then because it's Chople Berry, and it had Iron Defense, it had Body Press, and then it surprised my Fini in game 1 with a Power Whip that I didn't see coming. So it wasn't running Leech Seed. At this point, I hadn't seen the fact it wasn't leftovers. I'd seen Iron Defense, I'd seen Body Press. Automatically, I'm thinking it's Iron Defense, Body Press, Leech Seed, Protect. It wasn't. It was Power Whip, and it was Chople Berry. Completely surprised me on both games, and then it was just kind of because I didn't take that KO, it allowed them more pivoting, and yeah, it was a hard game to stomach. the person I was playing was making absolutely crazy plays all the time. Then I started buying into that. I started calling out their crazy plays. They stopped making crazy plays, and yeah, it was a whole big mess. But yeah, Ferrothorn was a really surprising mon, and I will agree with you. I think its coverage is better in this meta than its Iron Defense Body Press set.
Mm-hmm. I'll put it a little bit below Weezing because no finishes, but yeah.
That sorry, one thing I did forget to say about Weezing as well is it 4 times resists fighting moves.
Yes.
So it's an absolute Iron Defense Body Press check, and it can burn them as well. Will-O-Wisp was great on it. So if you struggle with Iron Defense Body Press, consider looking at that
Yeah, of course.
thing.
Okay, so Celesteela can run 2 sets mainly. So the Leech Seed, Flamethrower or Sub, Protect, Heavy Slam, or the Meteor Beam set. So haven't seen much tournament usage for it. I think it's a little bit too slow with the subset. I think it can be time installed pretty hard.
Yes and no with Celesteela, because what it's got over Registeel is it doesn't require as much setup, and if you can chip things down and take the KO with Celesteela, it's got snowball potential. Whether that's bulk snowball potential with like a Spadef boost, or whether it's attack boosts. I really like the sub leech seed set, and I don't know about you, Eden, but how many times have you built a team in Spikemuth, took it onto the showdown ladder, played like 2 or 3 games with it, thought this is pretty good, and then you run into a Celesteela, and then you realize, oh, I didn't consider Celesteela when I was building this team, and it just completely flattens you. It commands respect in team building, which I think like beefs up its rating in my opinion, and how you play it is very important. Like I do like the sub leech seed set. I've seen some cool Misty Seed acrobatic sets, which I think are like cool, giving it a Spadef boost, and then it gets access to a 110 base power flying move. With heavy slam as well. It can be run in a bunch of different ways, like you said. I like it. I think it's an A tier mon, personally.
Okay, in that case, because I think it's B tier, I will put it in high B, I think. Because, yeah, it is very flexible.
I would put it low A, high B, if I was to.
Yeah, I think just, the main thing is its flexibility, snowballing with Beast Boost. I mean, you can even run it Choice Banded. Like, there's so many random things you can do with this thing that, and like, even the stuff that beats it in theory, like, there's a Regieleki, you could technically use Wacom to make it less vulnerable to it. There's an Incineroar, you can use Meteor Beam to, like, it's very, on ladder, it's very frustrating because it's very hard to scout it. In tournament, though, it's a little bit easier to deal with, but at the same time, it's easy to sleep on. You're right, and you can forget about it in the team building phase.
And anything that Rillaboom can't touch is gives it extra points.
Yep, that's very
true.
Very, very true. All right, I see Mamoswine. We talk about Mamoswine. Coverage wise, this is always the case. Mamoswine, you look at its coverage and you go, "Oh, look at all these S tiers. Look, it actually eats them alive." But it usually just requires so much support to get Mamoswine functional, and that's always been the problem every single format with this thing. It just doesn't have enough bulk to function by itself.
Yeah, it's weak to fire, water, grass. I mean, it walls Regieleki, which is nice. It's got priority. It's a good mon.
If you predict well, yeah, I think it's always been the case. Like, if you could, in theory, predict absolutely perfectly, Mamoswine would be S tier.
Yeah. Its coverage is great, isn't it? Ground and ice just hits everything for like neutral damage at least.
I think it's C tier. I think it's too difficult to use.
On the right team, though, I don't know. Like,
I might put Registeel in C, actually. You know what?
Yeah, I mean, it might be low B, it might be high C. That's where I'll place it. Yeah,
Mama
IC seems
Swine or
fair.
Reggie.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, Mama Swine. Yeah, Mama Swine. I think IC is fair.
All right. Yeah. In that case, is there any other Pokemon with? I know I looked into Mudsdale recently, or at least a couple of UK players that I'm around did, and it just sadly just doesn't work. I feel like it kind of falls off without Dynamax. It falls off with the top contenders in the metagame right now. Just doesn't have enough power
Yeah.
and Trick Room. So
Yeah,
shame.
it's weak to Grassy Glide. That's always a shame.
Yeah. Just what I don't honorably mention that. Let's see what else we got. Oh yes, Sylveon. Sylveon was in a lot of the top teams actually this weekend. That is something I forgot to cover. Yeah, it's crazy the developments on this thing as well. Running leftovers now, all things like. So on a lot of teams that have run Urshifu, they obviously don't have Finny to cover the fairy slot. So Sylveon tends to be used instead as a Calm Mindset.
Yeah. Well, day one of the format, Sylveon was very popular. When Spikemuth first dropped on Showdown, there was ladder tour, not ladder tours, room tours getting posted every 10 minutes. It felt like.
Yeah.
And Sylveon was really popular, and then for the first 3 weeks or so, it kind of fell off. And then obviously this weekend we've just seen it rise up and take a tournament win. I don't think it's S tier, because what I it hits harder than Finny, but I feel like Finny does its job better.
Yes.
So because Finny can hit on water and fairy side, where I suppose you can run Mystical Fire on Sylveon, but are you really doing damage? I mean, the most popular set is Protect or Detect. Calm Mind, substitute Hyper Voice, so anything that resists Fairy can just switch in and wall it out, and the likes of Celesteela have a great time against it, where Finny can 1v1 a Celesteela. So yeah, I don't think it's S tier, but I think the particular choices that Joe and Colin made with their team were perfect and allowed Sylveon to function. Hyper Voice does crazy spread damage. Another fun fact: when Sylveon was running around, Weezing completely shuts that thing down as well.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, no, I think Sylveon deserves a spot in A tier. I don't think it's S tier, personally.
Yeah, I think Sylveon was the right call for the weekend, but I don't know if it will necessarily see as good a showing as it did this weekend. I think it might fall off. I think people might realize that steel types are actually kind of good, and as soon as the steel types go, rotate back on the teams, I think that's going to hurt it a lot.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah. All right, what do we got? So let's cover some of the redirectors. So we have Clefairy, we have Togekiss, and we have Amoonguss somewhere. Pretty sure there should be Amoonguss here, right? Where is Amoonguss?
Yep, there it is. Yeah.
Nope. I just lost it. Wait, did I just delete the Amoonguss?
Oh, you forgot one redirector. Indeedy.
Indeedy. Oh yeah, Indeedy. I'm sorry, I'm still looking for Amoonguss.
Oh, Amoonguss is next to Zoroark. I've just seen it.
I just dropped the Amoonguss somewhere. I can't find it. Wait, Zoroark, hang on, I'm still blind.
Below Talonflame.
Below Talonflame, okay. Talonflame's gonna stand out, right? Apparently not.
Your mouse is on Talonflame.
Okay. I get it. And Indeedee. We'll cover these in bulk. Oh, there's Indeedee. Okay, that's easy to find. So yeah, let's grab all of these. So redirectors. So I saw quite a few Togekiss actually this weekend, which was surprising because on ladder you tend to see a lot of Clefairy. You see a lot of Clefairy on these Registeel teams that kind of carry it, and when someone's dedicated to it, tends to be used more. But yeah, I saw both over the weekend. I didn't see as much Amoonguss, didn't see as much Indeedee, but they all have their niches. They all got their own little niches to fill.
Yeah, I think Togekiss is a really good one. Clefairy, you see it a lot with the Dragapult. I quite like that core, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we'll talk about Dragapult after this. Actually, I need to do that.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, no, like starting with Togekiss, really good mon. Ground immune, hits Rillaboom pretty hard, like matches up pretty well into Rillaboom. I always mention Rillaboom, but it is so important to have counterplay and answers to it that it really affects its place in the metagame. Fairy coverage is nice. Obviously, Follow Me is not very widely distributed, so having that option is great as well. Gets help in hand. This thing has really got four slot move slot syndrome. It's a really good check into Iron Defense Body Press. If you are struggling with Iron Defense Body Press, you can go with like a Heat Wave Scope Lens set, so you can crit through all the, like, for example, Registeel Amnesia boosts, and then it's hitting you on a 4 times resisted move as well, so it's a really good blanket check to that. And yeah, we've seen it before, early Sword and Shield. It's such a versatile Pokemon in the way it operates.
I definitely agree, actually. Yeah, I feel like Togekiss right now might actually be the best redirector. I don't know, like, it does definitely get competition from Indeedee, who I think runs on specific teams, especially stuff like dedicated Trick Room and stuff like just stuff that's quite vulnerable to the pivot fake out cause. Indeedee definitely does have a niche there. So I think it's definitely worth considering. But yeah, Togekiss has found itself in a really good spot, and also has pretty good item choices to cover its weaknesses too. That helps it.
Yeah, you can run Babiri, you can run Wacken, run Citrus. I've seen a lot of different items on Togekiss. You can't really look at a Togekiss and assume it's item.
Yeah. You also have Clefairy, who, you know, it has Fangard going for it. I feel like it's the weakest though, because it doesn't offer much as soon as you taunt it. I know the others are also kind of vulnerable to taunt, but Clefairy especially suffers from that, and it has no offensive output whatsoever once you shut it down. But you know, it still has Fangard. It still helps that resistance to spread attacks, and also certain play lines like protecting your Clefairy and enabling your partner to, you know, survive attacks that it couldn't. It's useful in certain situations like with Dragapult, but
Yeah.
overall I would say it's less flexible. Amoonguss, funnily enough, I have seen on some double grass. Some people consider it, but I feel like Togekiss is mainly going to take over. Like, in terms of redirection and setup or whatever, I feel like Togekiss is just, you know, premier right now, especially with that flying typing. That flying typing really, really helps it.
Yeah, so Amoonguss was really good previous formats, but in this particular format, on the most common Trick Room teams, the most common Trick Room team, you've got Torkoal, Hatterene, Stack Attacker, all under speed. Amoonguss and like Eruption from Torkoal or Expanding Force from Hatterene just threatens an Oko on it. So it's not really used as a Trick Room check anymore, where now it can be used as a pseudo redirector, and a lot of the time they pair it with Rocky Helmet, so Urshifu-Single-Strike does like 50% damage to itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it just, like, again, it used to blanket check Trick Room, but just not anymore. It just can't get away with it. Yeah, I think that just about does it for the redirectors. Let's go and find Dragapult, because yeah, got a lot of things to say about this one. I faced a Dragapult actually in the tour. It has a couple of good sets that you can consider. Mainly Dragon Dance, mainly with its partner in crime, Clefairy, a lot of the time, because it helps protect it, helps make it a bit bulkier. Get a Dragon Dance up, switch in your Fake Out Mon, and just try and do as much damage as you can. Really solid. Really good coverage with Dragon and Ghost, honestly. Yeah, not bad.
The only thing it doesn't have going for it, which is probably why it's in B tier, is that Dragon Dart hits both and it's only 50%, 50 base power, and Phantom Force takes a turn to work basically, which I know it protects it from being hit while it's in the abyss, but it's vulnerable when it comes back out, which is why it's so often paired with Clefairy. But one thing it does have going for it, it outspeeds Naganadel, which, you know, a lot of teams can have a fundamental Naganadel issue, which is why me and you both like to use it.
Yeah, of course.
Where with Dragapult and Clefairy, it's not that there's no counterplay, but it does make Naganadel's life a lot more awkward.
Yeah, I think definitely in terms of Dragapult, I feel like it's a bit of the victim of the meta game right now. In that Tapu-Fini is quite popular, but also Porygon 2 really does not like Trick Room being set up on it. It really does not like being able to hit it well. It just, yeah, it's just a little bit in a weird spot. Maybe if the metagame shifts though, it could pick back up. So don't count it out.
No, definitely not.
Right. So now we're getting to the point where there's less to talk about. So that's good. We got through a lot of solid Pokemon in this list. We did cover Hatterene a couple of times though. Oh, next on the
yeah.
So Hatterene, I think
put it next to Torkoal.
Yeah,
it's similar. It's similar. It's got that big spread type damage. It needs to have a team built around it. Hatterene and Torkoal offensively are just best friends. I think wherever you're going to put Torkoal, Hatterene should be pretty close by.
Yeah, and also a really good partner with Indeedee, of course. Indeedee can be used a bit more flexibly than them, but at the same time, Hatterene's damage output was proven in the first tour. He won the whole thing.
Definitely.
It's incredibly strong against unprepared teams. You need some kind of damage mitigation to put it in check or some way to prevent Trick Room. So
Hatterene needs Indeedee, but Indeedee doesn't need Hatterene, basically.
I just can't put it any higher because, like Torkoal, it's just a bit inflexible with what it does. And that it's really strong, but yeah, you know, it's always going to be held back by that.
Yeah.
So Whimsicott, I didn't see much of it over the weekend. Maybe a case of being another ladder hero, but definitely viable with Tailwind. Let me grab Tornadus as well, because they fit similar niches. Yeah, there's Tornadus. Yeah. So these often fight with each other for the Tailwind slot. I feel like Thundurus is hit a little bit because Hurricane isn't as spammable. You have to have Rain, really, to spam it properly, and Kyogre is not a thing, so you don't see it as much. I feel like you'd see Whimsicott more, so Whimsicott has more of a niche over it. I do feel like Whimsicott is probably the best Tailwinder in the format. That automatically, I think, puts it in A tier, because maybe low A, because I feel like it carries the archetype.
I am biased because I use Tornadus.
Oh yeah.
So I like Tornadus, but again, I think it depends on the team. So I like being able to Tailwind. I like being able to Icy Wind. I used a very, very bulky Tornadus with Rocky Helmet, which is not an item you commonly associate with Tornadus, which is why it was so powerful. So like a lot of the time, people would fake out Surge and Strikes into Tornadus, and being able to do 50% to an Urshifu while you're flinching is great. I mean, it depends on the team comp. If you need flying coverage and you need that extra Icy Wind, Tornadus is the way to go. It matches up well into Rillaboom, which is nice. Matches up well into Urshifu as well. I say that my one was built to match up well into Urshifu. A standard Sash set wouldn't, because you just get Surge and Strikes, or like you can just get picked off with Aqua Jet if you're low. But my one in particular did match up to Urshifu pretty well. Obviously, it doesn't have as much kind of tricks up its sleeve as Whimsicott. So Whimsicott is very, very commonly running the move Encore, along with its normal kit of Tailwind, Moonblast, or Energy Ball, depending on the team. And you can go for like Taunt or Helping Hand, but yeah, a lot of people are going for Encore, which is brilliant. It's really, really powerful move. It's an absolute checkmate move. So yeah, I'd probably be inclined to agree that Whimsicott probably takes the biscuit in terms of flexibility. But again, it just depends on the team comp.
Yeah, that's a very valid point, honestly. Especially with just, with tournaments you can run Air Slash as well. You don't have to run Hurricane, but
yeah, the
definitely.
flinches are nice as well. When there's a flinch, there's a way.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah.
That's why we put Togekiss so highly. Anyway, let's talk about Beartic. One of my favorite Pokemon, by the way. But
Really?
yeah, I love Beartic. Story time. I'll keep it brief, but I once went to a UK tournament with Beartic Manual Rain and almost hot cut. It was a bit of a weird tournament. It was round robin, so I got like a really weird bracket and then like lost to like the one meta team, beat all the others. And Beartic was okay. It wasn't amazing, but it kind of grew with me, and it was just like my Pokemon that I used with this Swift Swim, like ice typing.
Yeah, you get them emotional attachments, don't you, when you get a decent run with a niche Pokemon.
Yeah, but no, fake art exists. It really doesn't like that. It's not great. Like, I wish it was good. One day it will be. Maybe the new mechanic will help it reach new heights, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
What else have we got? Oh, I faced a Jellicent in the tournament. I'll go over that quickly. I do think it's a C tier. I think it's a little bit too vulnerable to the plethora of grass types, which sadly I lacked, so it really hurt my matchup in this one.
Yeah.
It is a little vulnerable to Finny too, but it's pretty good against some physical mons, like completely, like, has a ridiculously oppressive matchup against Urshifu-Water, in that it literally can't touch it.
You can't touch it.
Yeah. But in terms of the hard trick room mon, I can definitely think of worse Pokemon, but I do think it's a little bit too niche for most teams. I do think the person I was against justified it pretty well. It was a nightmare to face. And Shadow Ball, cool coverage, Strength Sap, unique move, good against certain Pokemon, certain matchups, good against.
Yeah, I love that move.
And you probably should run Colbur Berry on it, because then you can kind of blanket set up on stuff like Urshifu Dark. I usually expect to see Colbur. And obviously it has Spout once it sets Trick Room up and can get health back with Strength Sap, so you can't leave it. But yeah, I think it's a little bit too niche. There's a few too many ways to deal with it right now.
Yeah, it's a cool man. But yeah, and it's weak to Rillaboom.
Yeah,
I've been saying that a lot.
Yep, and it sucks, but yeah, that does hurt a lot of Pokemon in this format. What a shame. Oh yeah, Ditto. You don't see Ditto anymore, do you? Why is that? Why don't you see Ditto anymore?
Because there's no broken Zacians on every team to copy.
There you go. That's it. Effed it.
Yep.
Not sure what to move on to next. Because there's a couple of things to cover. I think I've. Oh, there's Politoed. I knew I missed it somewhere. Okay, so there is Politoed. I think Politoed's Is it slightly better than Pelliper? I don't know, because like spamming Hurricane is really good, but Politoed does have better bulk.
Yeah, Politoed's better than Pelliper. It's got better bulk. And access to Perish Song is like niche, but it can win you games that you have no business winning.
Yeah,
a lot of the time. Helping Hand as well. Pelipper's more of an offensive, like rain setter, where Politoed's more of a defensive rain setter.
I'd agree with that. And
yeah,
Politoed has a really cool utility move pool, and that gets like random stuff like Icy Wind.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Helping Hand.
Yeah. Low B is probably.
Yeah, I'll put it just above Pelipper. Also Gothitelle. I remember seeing Gothitelle ran in a lot of ladder stuff because it's more obnoxious to face it and not know what you're up against exactly. But I don't think it carries over to main tournaments. I feel like it's vulnerable to you scouting its set, and the power level isn't as high, so that when you're locked in with something, it's not as big a deal. So I think it's like mid C.
Yeah, it can kind of be played around. it is powerful. Like you say, it's more of a ladder hero. I don't know about C. I think low B because its ability itself is just so obnoxious.
All right. Well,
Not like it completely removes a tool from your kit being able to switch. There's a lot of pivoting moves which weaken it to a degree in the format, so that just allows you to switch. It's not as ideal as having the option to just switch in a lot of cases, but it's got to be said that it's not uncommon to see a team with 4 pivoting moves on it. So because of that, yeah, it's probably not as powerful as you would expect it to be. Like Fake Out plus Urshifu just sounds broken if you can't switch, but it's not proven to really do anything tournament wise. So
yeah, it just struggles with the amount of pivoting, right? I think that hurts it a lot.
Yeah.
Like, look at the ST. You have what? Rillaboom can pivot, Incineroar can pivot, Tsareena can pivot, Regileki can pivot. It's just victim of the STs right now. So I remember I used Snorlax early as a attempt to Trick Room check. It did not work. But I do think it just fits in C. Along with where's Azumarill, because they do similar things. Azumarill does it slightly better. Where they just go behind a Clefairy, click belly drum, and then try to win the game. There's Azumarill. Perfect.
I think Azumarill is underexplored.
Yes.
Because we've got the same typing in Tapu-Fini and other waters that compete for its position, like Urshifu water. I do think Azumarill is underexplored.
I agree.
It's got priority. It's got a crazy steel move that removes terrain. People kind of forget about Steel Roller, but it is a thing, and you can run it in this format because terrains are everywhere all the time. So it's even if you didn't have terrain on your team, you could run an Assault Vest Azumarill set with Steel Roller. I wouldn't think that was crazy. Obviously, the ability Huge Power helps it out a lot. So yeah, I think an Assault Vest set is not too bad. Again, it's pretty niche. I wouldn't put it any higher than B. Mid B at best.
There's loads of random stuff you can do with it. It obviously gets perished as well, which is always something you got to think about, I guess. If you see like a Gothitelle preview, you know what's up.
No, definitely.
But another water type, Gyarados actually, I think, placed in the top cut of the tour. Need to wait for the actual team results to come out, but
I played the person who cut with Gyarados.
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah, I think it was an Assault Vest Gyarados. I'm not 100% sure though. The amount of damage that my Muddy Water done to it made me think it was Assault Vest, but maybe I'm just underestimating Gyarados' bulk because it does have high special defense rate.
Yeah, it has like
109,
over 100.
Yeah. Yes, I only saw Power Whip from it. It was a pretty quick set. It was the same person I was saying I had a bad matchup against when they had Redirection plus Naganadel, and I realised I can just get 2 Carmines off with Finny and win the game, and I managed to. So I didn't see much, but it did chunk my Finny for about 80% with a Power Whip.
Damn.
But yeah, no, Coolmon obviously doesn't like electric moves. Has a good matchup into the well, not necessarily Rillaboom, but it intimidates the big 3, and they can't really hit it for too much damage. I mean, Rillaboom's the one who can hit it for the most damage, and even that's not a lot after an Intimidate, so it's definitely got a niche.
I do also think teams don't have to run an electric. All the top teams in this tournament, well, the winning team didn't run an electric, so Gyarados is a little bit safer than in a lot of formats that do revolve around strong electrics. I feel like it's a bit more lenient for it. And
definitely, electric doesn't feel as important as it did, which opens the door for it.
Yeah, in this specific format, electric and ground is probably the weakest it's been in a while because there's not many Pokemon that run it. So yeah, it's interesting for sure. Where's I can't remember if there's any other electrics that I need to cover. I don't think so. I think we're literally done with the electrics, which is hilarious. Yeah.
Tapu Koko.
Oh, yeah. We can talk about Tapu Koko. So
Tapu Koko.
Tapu Koko, I think the main way you'd run it, I will put it in C tier. I don't know if you'd object to that, but Tapu Koko's, I think you run it as a support, because if you're running it offensively, you're outclassed by Regieleki. So you'd mainly want to run it, but actually make use of its bulk, make use of its fairy typing. The fact it can actually stay in on like Urshifu Dark, the fact it messes with terrains, and also the fact it has Nature's Madness, which is surprisingly spammable. Yeah,
it's a brilliant move. I like a Solfest Tapu Koko sets with like Volt Switch, Electro Web, Nature's Madness, Dazzling Gleam. Like a pure kind of support chip the opponent down, but speed and pseudo speed control, terrain setting, pivoting. I think it's better than C. Like, I think it's better than Gengar. I think it's better than Rotom-Wash. I think it goes better. I think it goes just higher than Rotom-Wash.
I will put it here purely because Rotom has seen a little bit more play, but I definitely think this could rise, especially if people figure out how to use it. I feel like Aleki really locks it out. As soon as they bring Aleki to you, you're really sad because you set up electric terrain for them.
Yeah. Compared to you can't really compare the damage output like with the terrain there from the Gen 7 to Gen 8 as well. Hates it. Aleki's got that crazy ability. It's just a lot faster. It outclasses it in every department in regards to going fast, hitting hard. Like we said, Tapu Koko has a bit more going for it in terms of defensive capabilities, and just it's got a little bit more flexibility in its move pool.
Yeah,
it likes dealing with darks and things like that. It's a B tier mon. Sets terrain, which is good.
I remember seeing a lot of Raichus in the early format. I do not think that Raichu is viable at all. I mean, it does get a good speed tier. 110 is like obviously speed creates 109. It's like Kartana, like Ninetales, I guess. But I think it was better in a format with more power because of its utility move pool. You can sash it, you can nuzzle things. But right now, I think the format's too bulky. Tapu-Fini's like fine on it because it's just volt switching. Like, doesn't really care. Obviously, it gives a team like a immunity to Aleki for a short period of time, although it can still Electro Web around you. So I just don't think it does enough, and I think its defenses really show like it's very vulnerable.
I think putting Raichu next to Ditto isn't very like. I think it's low C tier. It can do something. It can fake out. Okay. It can nuzzle, but what it does isn't great.
Sure,
if that makes sense.
I'll put it a little bit higher than Jellicent purely because of the experimentation it had. So people have used it a lot. But yeah, I don't think I've rated Raichu in any format. Not even 16, and then it won the whole thing. So what do I know? Okay, so we're getting low on Pokemon now. That's good.
Can we talk about Mimikyu?
Mimikyu, of course we can. All right. So
this is a Pokemon that interests me. It's got a decent speed tier. Its ability is great. It's got access to priority. It's got access to speed control. It's got access to Swords Dance. It's got a great offensive typing. Why isn't it used more?
I think, I definitely think it's lacked experimentation. That's surprising because Mimikyu tends to be quite popular. Everyone seems to always cut like any excuse to use Mimikyu, every single format, and then as soon as this format comes around and people can experiment with it, no one does. So everyone's missing out. Everyone should at least, attempt to use this thing. But either way, no one's really managed to find anything with this. I feel like with a bunch of the setup strategies, like the Calm Mind stuff, the fact it can't be fake outed, I think it beats a lot of that stuff with Swords Dancing on it, and finding a way through them. So I will put it around the Gengar area because it's like experimentation. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if I put it higher at some point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. That's what I mean. Like you look at it and you think it's got so many tools it's got going for it. Um, maybe it's its damage output without any kind of setup. Is Ghost really a great type into the current meta?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Just gonna throw Hitmontop out there. Hitmontop also got a lot of experimentation on early ladder. I remember seeing a lot of it. I feel like it's around the Raichu tier though. Surprisingly. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I would agree
it
with
just
that.
is a little bit too weak now.
Yeah, it can do stuff, just not very well.
Yeah, it does have a cool support moveset though. Like it has Wide Guard, Helping Hand. Like if you face it, you got to know what it does. You got to know what it's
Yeah.
capable of. But as soon as you do,
Yeah.
then you know you're okay. You're fine.
Yeah, fake out and feint is a potent combination.
Yes, exactly. Don't get caught out. All right. Point anything out if I've missed anything. Because now we're getting to the point where, oh yeah, one thing that I'm sure people were surprised about, Aegislash being kind of mediocre. That is seemingly surprising, seeing as obviously you got Rillaboom as the premier mon. And you'd think that a Pokemon with so many resistances would be good, but it doesn't. It feels quite subpar. I tried it.
I have faced one and didn't respect it on team preview, and it 1v4 my whole team. So yeah, I don't think it's great. But had that been a best of 3, I think I would have ended up taking the set because I just kind of, when you're on Showdown and you're just clicking, aren't you? And you're not really thinking.
Yeah.
If that was a more serious game, I think I would have won, if I'm honest. But yeah, it does demand respect because, like you say, it has so many resistances. Incineroar kind of keeps it in check, doesn't it? Really, it matches up quite well into it offensively, and obviously nerfs it with Intimidate.
Yeah.
And Incineroar's everywhere. But yeah, I mean, I could see it being used, and I don't know how much decent success, but I think a cool Aegislash team could come out of somewhere.
I hope so. Again, on the main good stuff score, it would give the team an ability to beat Nihilego, which it tends to struggle with normally.
Yeah.
There's just some random matchups that it pins down pretty hard. Oh, yeah, it's okay on Naganadel too. I mean, it can get flamethrower, but there's just some like specific matchups it might be okay in. Yep, just something that hasn't seen much experimentation, but could be interesting. All right, so
Corona is an interesting one.
yes, there we go. All right, so
very, very interesting.
Volcarona was the Pokemon that I faced at the last match in the tournament. The guy I was facing was absolutely cracked with it and almost 1v4'd me with it. But I timer stalled them out for the win.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a problem actually if you let it set up. Quiver Dance is good. It's good with Grassy Seed. Obviously, Rillaboom's everywhere. It's really good with Grassy Seed.
Yeah, you don't even need your own Rillaboom.
I think it's actually an A-tier threat. I legit, I'm running good stuffs, and it was good on my good stuffs. Yeah. So that means it's good.
If you asked me nearer the start of the format, I might have argued it deserved to place an S. It was that good. Obviously,
I might put it
anything with a 4 times weakness gets checked if it becomes too much of a problem. If you're weak to rock, and if you're 4 times weak to rock and you're matching up really well into the meta, then random rock moves are going to start coming out of nowhere because they're not going to let you get away with that. If they can help. So yeah, and it can be EV to liver Surgeon Strikes. Flame Body's great on it because Urshifu's want to hit it with Surgeon Strikes, and you get 3 chances to proc Flame Body, and you can live it with a Citrus Berry. Quiver Dance, amazing. The setup potential with the thing is crazy. Special attack, special defense, and speed boost. It usually runs fire and grass coverage or just fire, so you can get these pseudo kind of protect, rage powder, quiver dance, fiery dance sets where if the situation calls for it, they go for a rage powder, or if the situation calls for it, they can quiver dance and start getting themselves going. So it's considering how like not flexible its move pool really is in a way. Well, it is to a degree, but it feels like a flexible mon that can do a bunch of cover a bunch of
Yeah.
different roles in a team.
You know what? I'm actually going to put it higher. You know why? You've just covered the Quiver set. It can also run Rage Powder.
Yeah.
So you actually, there's a lot of different ways you can run this thing.
Yeah.
That's what
It can
scares
also
me.
run It can also run Struggle Bug. So it can be if you struggle with special attackers, it can be a special attack damage reduction. Something that people don't talk about but is really cool on it. It can run String Shot.
Oh no.
Which is a really cool
Yes.
move. -2 speed to both Pokemon on the opposite side of the field.
Yeah, like
Niche. It's
so
niche,
good.
but it's a thing. Yeah, it could work.
I wish String Shot honestly got more distribution. I would love to honestly see that. Dracovish is something you see a lot on ladder. I must see Dracovish in every other team on ladder, but it does not
Yeah.
translate usually to tournament, so I will put it around the B tier. Still something you have to consider. Thankfully, there's a lot of
Yeah.
grasses. There's a Finny, so good grass and waters are the main thing that stops it from going out of B.
Yeah. Like if you have I think a lot of its success comes from the fact that the main intimidator gets one shot by it. So you can't just kind of spam intimidates on it to keep it in check. Even after an Incineroar is getting one shot by a Dracovish, which is nice for Dracovish. It's weak to fake out because most of the time you want to run Scarf or Band. A lot of the time you'll see it paired with the Tsareena for obvious reasons to get around the fake out.
Yeah.
Covers it quite nicely. Defensively with its ice type move, well, offensively should I say, the Tsareena. And Tsareena benefits from the fact that Dracovish can one shot an Incineroar. So yeah, it's a really good Pokemon. Got to be respected. Can run away with the game if you allow it to. With the right speed control and support, the thing is a big threat. Vicious Rend goes crazy.
My hot take on it as well is I feel like it's actually stronger in Trick Room than Tailwind because you can bulk that thing out and it can actually live a lot more than you'd think. But because a lot of
Yeah,
people run it in Tailwind, you have to min max it and it really affects its bulk.
definitely. It can be built to be quite bulky, and it's got such a good defensive typing as well.
Yeah.
That it's got that Naganadel feel to it where it feels bulkier than it is because it's resistant or taking neutral hits from so many things.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Like, I've always noticed that and it's just so hurt by how it's EV most of the time.
Yeah. It's got the same typing as Palkia, and we've seen how bulky Palkia can
Yeah,
feel in the Series 12 format. So
exactly. That's what I mean.
typing's really good.
Um, Scizor is something. Well, Scizor. I never know how to say this name. Anyway, it is. It's my British accent. So this thing is Steel and Bug, which is quite unique and quite cool. I do think it can also run a variety of sets. It can run Sword Stance. It can run Choice Band. In tournament, I faced someone who ran I think it was like Sword Stance with Dual Wing Beat, and it specifically destroyed my Buzzwole, and I was really upset. But I got my revenge, so it's okay. But it does get a lot of really interesting coverage. I think it's solid A tier and actually needs to be explored more. I think it's good. I think it's really good.
I, th- mm, I think the band set is probably the best for it. Um, I think it wants to pivot. It wants to click big U-turns and chunk things down by pivoting and then maybe come in with bullet punch and like for a late game cleanup. I don't know how much value you'd be able to get out of Swords Dance with it, with fire being everywhere. Fire has to be everywhere because of the steals,
I
the
agree.
big steals that you need to like. I can't condone Celesteela being in the B tier and Scizor being in the A tier.
Really?
That
You think?
yeah, Celesteela is miles better than a Scizor.
Oh, I don't know about that. Oh, that's a hot
Maybe
take.
maybe that's where we differ,
I
but
think we
I don't
differ on
know.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not disrespecting Scizor, but Celesteela, while it may operate quite slow because of its flexibility and what it can do Meteor Beam sets, it can do all different types of sets, even though its kind of Leech Seed Stall set is considered slow, it's not as slow as something like Registeel or whatever. I think that I just don't think you can consider Scizor a better mon than Celesteela. I don't consider Scizor in team building because realistically all I have to do is put a fire type on the team where I've got to think about how I would approach a Celesteela matchup. It demands more respect. I think it's a better mon.
All right. Because we're debating on it, I will put it next to Celesteela, just here. And
Okay.
might raise Tornadus's stonks a bit. So, yeah. All right. I will trust your judgment, but I do think this is sleeper good.
Oh no, I also I do think it's sleeper good as well. The choice band Scizor absolutely punches holes in things.
Mhm.
So yeah, if I see a Scizor, I do respect it. Like I'll make sure that I keep me Incineroar around. I pivot in intimidates well and stuff. I just think it's easily managed because most teams have an Incineroar.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, Lilligant. I'm just gonna put that next to Torkoal, just all in the same team.
Yeah.
Got to cover it. Sleep Powder gives Torkoal after you, gives like a fast mode on the team. Yeah, gives the team a bit more flexibility in how it approaches the matchup.
Yep. Eruption that can go faster than a Regieleki is
It's funny.
yeah, very fun.
I know that I experimented with Garchomp, but I feel like, um, as I said, I don't think there's another ground type other than Landorus. I feel like it really starts to fall off after that. And it's surprising because on paper, Garchomp seems really good. It has a good speed to. Dragon typing seems good resistance wise, but it's surprisingly difficult to get much damage out of this thing. You have to have it on a specific Swords and Nuts setup, and
Yeah.
that's really hard to get away with the amount of pivoting, the amount of it just requires so much effort, and you kind of get like, so payoff because it's not hitting like as hard as you'd like. It just needs
Yeah.
too much to like. If it wants to earthquake, it has to do it next to specific stuff. It can't just earthquake with any partner. It's just I can't figure out the team for it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been running stomping, haven't they?
I think you have to on most teams, yeah, and that
Yeah,
really hurts the damage output.
yeah, definitely, and especially because like grassy terrain's everywhere, so your earthquake's most likely going to be nerfed anyway.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, Garchomp always feels like a pain to deal with for me. And that sounds daft because I've got Icy Wind Tornadus and Naganadel, but like the good stuff's core, it's good against it's relatively good against that. It chunks Urshifu with rough skin as well if it eats a Surgeon Strikes.
mm-hmm.
Rillaboom, it's probably got a no, it's probably got a bad matchup into Rillaboom realistically. Um, but it's a decent mon. Yeah, it's a decent mon. I would say it's top of C tier. I think it's better than all the mons that are currently in C tier personally.
Yeah, okay.
Garchomp.
I think you can like maybe someone will figure it out. Maybe someone will build the perfect Garchomp team, but
Yeah.
I haven't figured it out myself yet. Oh yeah. Geez, Latios. Latios did really well in the first tour. I forgot about that. It got third place, I
Yep.
think.
Yeah, it's a good Pokemon.
Yeah, solid. Just
High speed, big special attack, gets Tailwind. Just a good attacker.
I'll put it again above Drakefish because I think obviously proven tournament result. It yeah, it's got good coverage. I think surprisingly, I think you can actually cut Draco Meteor and just run like Ice Beam Psyshock, which is interesting. But
Yeah, definitely. I've not really experimented with the Latis. But again, when I face them, they're always they give you a lot to think about. Dragons are just in a really good place in this meta, I think.
They are, yeah.
Dragons are in a very good place.
I think so. Are there any other dragons I missed out on? I don't think I count Salamence. Salamence just isn't there, is it?
Intimidate Mon.
It struggles without a mechanic. Like, yeah, obviously Mega Salamence was amazing. You had Z moves that boosted it too,
Yeah.
and then didn't really get anything. Like Dynamax kind of came and went, and yeah, just kind of in a bit of a sad place. I wish it was good though. Salamence is a cool design. Good old
Yeah, I like
dragon.
its design. Dragonite, actually, that's worth talking about.
Oh yeah, I lost that in Top Cut. Where is it? I got some stuff to say about Dragonite. Wait, I'm blind. Oh, there we go. Sweet. Dragonite is.
It's A tier. It's A tier.
Dragonite is
It,
not A tier.
it is. It is.
Why is it
I'll
A
tell you
tier?
why. Because, right, 4 times resist Rillaboom.
Okay.
So we've already established that is a great thing to have. Inner focus.
Yeah.
Cannot be flinched, cannot be intimidated, which is amazing. Give this thing expert belt, and it's one shot on Rillabooms, it's one shot on Urshifus, it's one shot on Incineroars with superpower. Thing's crazy, really good. Calvin Foster, I believe,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, was using Clefairy and Dragonite in one of the Team Tour sets. I can't remember the name of it now. And I've seen a few replays of it going absolutely nuts. I've tried it myself. It feels really good. Obviously, like any 4 times resist mon, which keeps it from being top tier. You've just got to keep it away from ice attacks. But what you can do with it and the matchups that it helps with, like it's similar to most of the good dragons. It really helps against good stuffs, which are everywhere. You know, your Urshifu, Rillaboom, Incineroar. Does massive damage into things. You can run a Dragon Dance set, snowball out of control really quickly. This thing is a good Pokemon. I promise you, this is a good Pokemon.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if it come out and won a tournament.
Well, it's already had a placement because, like, remember the guy who I faced, like, kind of used Dragonite in the team that bodied me, so it has already placed. But yeah, it came out like game 2, superpowered my Incineroar. It dropped. I was like, oh, okay. I have not faced Dragonite, so I didn't know it's superpowered. Like, I thought it would just be like, I knew it wasn't Dragon Dance because it was a Trick Room team. I thought it would be like, you know, Dragon, flying, maybe some kind of setup or utility, something like that, and then it just busts out the superpower. It's like, oh wait, Incineroar just died. Oh no. Inner focus is really good, as you said. I think it's definitely
speed as well. It gets extreme speed, which is it's easy to forget on such a chunky dragon boy.
Of course.
Yeah, it's really hard to. It's really easy to. Well, you won't forget once you've been done by it, but getting hit by an extreme speed is it's a good little end game on as well. Honestly, really good Pokemon. I can see it doing well. I can see it doing well.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, again, it already has, and maybe it will do even better next time. So we'll see. Araquanid is. I mean, I could see it in some kind of hard Trick Room team. I feel like it just hits pretty hard. It doesn't like the pivoting meta though.
It does and it doesn't. It depends how you play it. Like I played one in round 3 and I managed to neutralize it quite well, but you know, a few good reads here and there, maybe from my opponent, and I could have been in a different position. It gets leech life, it gets liquidation, it hits Incineroar and Rillaboom for seriously big damage. You know, it's not very great against Urshifu Water or Tapu-Fini, but it hits the big 2, which is worth something.
Also, being burn immune is really fun.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Speaking of Pokemon that burn, where's there we go. The docs. Let's grab these two before I forget, because these are actually kind of relevant. These have popped up because Inner Focus is really, really good right now. So
Yes.
I think I will put Entei um around the A tier. I think Entei is pretty good.
Yeah.
Solid burn capabilities with Sacred Fire, really good support move pool, can be used with Assault Vest. Sometimes on ladder you'll see Scarf. I don't know about that in tournament, but it can't be fake outed, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
But I like AV on it. I think it's really good as an AV alternative to what Incineroar does if you're looking for something to, burn and just kind of sit there and burn the entire opponent's team.
Yeah. It's expert belt is pretty cool on it as well. You can hit some nice calcs with expert belt. Yeah, like you basically covered it all there. It gets good coverage, gets rock, gets ground, gets obviously gets fire. Another extreme speed mom. So yeah, it does. It can run a variety of moves. AV's good on it. Gives it nice bulk. Yeah, just an all round good, really good fire type.
I've also seen Suicune use a lot of support. So I've seen it a couple of times. Does very well on ladder. Seen it a lot on ladder. But
Yep.
yeah, it's just decent support. Snarl, Tailwind, Scold, Burn Utility, Helping Hand, Icy Wind, you name it. It can do it, and it's got the bulk to survive on most things.
Yeah.
Just doesn't like Rillaboom, doesn't like Regieleki. But
it's a problem. It can be a problematic Pokemon. For you to deal with if it's on your opponent's side. But
yeah,
the set I really like is the Calm Mind set because I find it's very passive and has kind of all my friends are dead syndrome.
yes.
But being able to set it up with Calm Mind on them because you get a lot of free turns with Suicune, you get a lot of like passive free turns that you can use. And rather than just sitting there scalding things or snarling, you can start beefing up your offensive and special defensive capabilities.
Yeah.
So if I was to run Suicune, spoiler alert for anyone who plays me, I'm probably running Calm Mind because that is the only set I really like on Suicune.
I think, yeah, because of its passivity, it surprisingly can get worn down by stuff like Incineroar that you wouldn't think is a check, and has a couple of rough matchups in the S tier that prevents it from being too dominant, but still solid A tier.
Yeah, really bulky. It will live. You have to double it to kill it in most cases.
Let's quickly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, with Suicune, you've kind of got to double it with two super effective attacks if you want to remove it turn one.
Oh yeah, you do. Yeah, because you just can't KO it. It's too bulky. Oh, where's? I swear I saw Turtonator. There we go. I'm just gonna grab some body press mons quickly, just because they need to deserve an honourable mention. Probably won't go too into depth because I've talked a lot about body press strategies. We both have. So Bronzong can also be considered because it's got an immunity to the aforementioned Landorus, but it's kind of similar to Registeel, but it does get Trick Room, so it makes it slightly better. I think it does place around high C. Don't think it's really been explored much. Maybe it will be a bit higher if it gets explored. Turtonator really struggles with timer. Does have a cool defensive typing, but I think is outclassed by Komodo. So I think it's in a similar area, honestly.
It's nice that it's neutral to fairy. But yeah, I mean, I like Turtonator. I always think it's got potential to do well because of its type, and Iron Defense Body Press really helped at this gen. But yeah, I don't think this is the format for it.
It's a shame, really.
Yeah.
Not much left now. A Regidraco, the ladder hero. Yeah.
I love that thing.
Yep, you can never sleep on it. Where is? I'll put it actually next to Dracovish because they're similar, like ladder hero teams that might steal a top cut result at some point.
As much as it pains me to say it, because I prefer it over Dracovish, but Regidrago is low B, if not C.
Okay.
Like there's Tapu-Fini at most places. it's on a lot of teams. Tapu-Fini. You've got at least the thing is with Dracovish, Fish's Rend still does damage. Where even to water types, where you switch in a Finny or any fairy type, basically, if a team's got double fairy type, you've got 5 Pokemon in team preview. You cannot bring the Regidrago.
Yeah.
It's a shame because it does so well into the good stuff, fire, water, grass core, but the fairies in the world are keeping it from being dominant. If this thing was around before fairies existed, it would be crazy, and the meta will probably just turn into who's Scarf Regidrago hits first.
I think this is the main problem with it. Like, it needs speed control, but it also needs Rillaboom. So you need to pivot so many conditions to make it even functional versus a team that just happens to have a Tapu-Fini. It's really annoying.
Yeah, you probably need Rillaboom just to deal with the Finny and reset terrain, and maybe even Indeedee for some follow me and terrain setting. Like I would run double terrain if I was trying to make Regidrago work.
Yeah, I might even put it just in C tier until it's proven that it can do any better. I think it's just got too many requirements.
The problem, I love it as well because I built a really fun Regidrago team in Series 7, but
yeah,
I pulled a Regidrago team in top 4 of the random tournament that I was talking about at the start of the video.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing just lost me the tournament. Like, I couldn't do anything. Didn't even feel bad when I finished because I'm just like, I had no matchup. Regidrago just had no matchup. I had nothing. The team was poorly built, if I'm honest. So, yeah, I don't rate it at all.
I forgot about Cresselia. I was using this thing most of the format, so I have quite a few opinions to share on this. So, Cresselia is solidly high B, for sure.
I definitely thought you were going to put Cresselia in A tier.
No, I'm actually dropping it going forward. I think that it actually struggles to function because Porygon does its job better. Because Porygon hits a lot harder, and the whole thing that I did with Cresselia, it can't do anymore. So what I used to do with it is abuse the fact that everyone was running Nihilego with no bulk EVs, and you KO it with Psyshock. But you can't do that anymore. They're all bulky, or they have some amount of bulk investment that the snipe doesn't work. And if this snipe doesn't work, then that's one of your key things that you add it onto the team for. Just its niche is taken away, and it sucks. It's still really good though.
I think the common Nihilego spread is like max speed, special attack, and then 68 defense EVs, I believe.
Yeah.
To live a Miracle Seed Grassy Glide.
Yeah, I thought it would be Grassy Glide related.
Yeah, so the Psyshock probably doesn't pick it up with that, does it?
No, it won't. It's because I'm running like near max attack and it just gets it. So with any amount of defense, no. But again, it has a great move pool. It can run multiple sets, which is why it makes it high B. So you can run either Calm Mind, you can run Trick Room, Helping Hand stuff. You can run Icy Wind. You can run Thunder Wave. I don't like it so much with Finny around. I think Trick Room's the better option for it on any team that it goes into. So just
it's got kind of Suicune vibes, hasn't it? Where it can be annoying and it's a good support mod. It's bulky. It's hard to remove, but like I know you were running it with Calm Mind, and I really like that because again, like. Probably sound like a broken record. The same thing I was saying about Suicune is that I like these Pokemon who can sit there and actually set up and become a threat. Otherwise, they just risk being too passive and you can just ignore them the whole game.
I think that, though, I did try the Morning Sunset, and if there's any kind of physical attack, it takes a little bit too much damage. And also, Morning Sun has really low PP. So you can actually run out of usage in a game.
Is it Moonlight or more? It's Moonlight, isn't it, on Cresselia?
Oh, is it Moon? Sorry, either way, it's one with 8 PP, right? So
yes, I think so. Yeah, and then if there's any kind of weather on the field that isn't sun, it nerfs it as well.
Yeah, which sucks.
It isn't too relevant, but it can come into play.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Stack Attacker while it's here. I think it's in the same place. Yeah, all of these.
Yeah,
Stack Attack is
that
slightly
team.
better. I think you can use it outside of the core. Like
It's
just
standalone. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The Stack Attacker can stand by itself. I've seen it in Good Stuff cores,
yeah.
just as like a secondary mode. Yeah, I think Stack is a cut above the rest on that
Yeah,
team.
I'll even put it above Ninetales because I think that maybe someone will figure it out. Look at these top threats. It's actually okay on like all of these. It's actually. I mean, maybe not Finny, maybe not Urshifu, but like, yeah, it's got decent top tier matchups actually, and like hard checks as well. Like Incineroar can't touch it.
Yeah.
Rillaboom has to take high horsepower, but it doesn't really want to do that. So yeah, solid.
Yeah, it is a solid one.
Landorus-I is kind of, middling, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Probably B because it's Landorus. I can't really any lower, but it just kind of doesn't feel like it does much.
It's crazy how a mon that was so oppressive in past non-Dynamax formats can feel so lackluster now. So like I wasn't around for the formats when Landorus was reigning supreme, but I've heard a lot of things. Yeah, I know you was. You've been around quite a while, well longer than me.
Yeah,
but it's weird to think that it was so oppressive because its kit hasn't really changed that much.
No, but
it's not like it's lost or gained a bunch of moves or anything. It's kind of stayed the same from what I gather.
It just Grassy Glide came along and just it doesn't have damage output anymore. It has to run at like Earth Power, and you may as well be like abusing Landorus-I with much stronger Earth Powers coming out of it.
Yeah.
And if you want Intimidate, just Incineroar, offers that. Even Gyarados and stuff offer way more options on top of what Landorus provides. It's just its damage output's been nerfed so much. Who would have thought like 145 base power attack isn't enough?
It's the garbage attacks it gets access to.
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't get a flying move.
No, yeah. If it got Brave Bird, if it got high horsepower, it would be a different story altogether.
Oh, man. Imagine if it got Brave Bird though. Like, imagine all these grass types in S tier just crying.
Even you know what? Even if it got dual wing beat, which doesn't make any sense thematically because it doesn't have wings. I understand why it doesn't get it, but like just from a let's stat point of view, if it got dual wing beat, it would be such a different story. If it got high horsepower, even if it just got high horsepower, like forget the flyer move. I think if it got high horsepower, it would see a lot more usage.
Yeah, exactly. Like just high horsepower would be enough.
U-turn rock slide. Yeah, U-turn rock slide high horsepower would be a really good set.
Oh, Spectria. Spectria is actually an A tier threat.
Oh yeah.
So this is so Dragapult is a victim of the metagame. Spectria is actually thrives in this particular metagame. It doesn't like the Porygon developments, but everything else it likes.
I would put it in between Nihilego and Volcarona personally.
Yes. Yeah, I actually agree. Yeah.
Yeah, the things it's immune to fake out, it's ghost type, it's got the snowball potential with the Grimmsnarl. It can do Snarl and Will-O-Wisp and Sub and Nasty Plot. Yeah, the things it can Mudshot. Obviously it's Shadow Balls. Yeah, it's a amazing speed tier, faster than most things in the metagame, hits like a truck, and snowballs out of control if you allow it to. I rate the thing.
And also, it's a special attacker that actually beats Finny because it sets up faster than it. So
yes.
Really, really cool option.
Really good Pokemon. It's something I want to look to build around in the next week or so. I do like the look of the Spectria.
Yeah, it's super good. All right, I think. Oh no, actually, honorable mention. There's Heatran. Yeah. I'll leave Heatran till last. I think I've got one more I'll cover, and then we'll just do Heatran for last because it's kind of picked up, hasn't it? So Crobat is something that I was using on ladder for a long time. It is a B tier though. So
it's good. No, it's good. I've messed about with Crobat as well, and it patches. It makes matchups more favorable. That, like for example, Finny, Rillaboom, Urshifu. It likes them. It can set up speed control. It's a cool mon.
So when Urshifus weren't bulky, I was running Choice Band Dual Wing Beat specifically to bypass Sash, and it worked. Run Adamant, run Dual Wing Beat, and yeah, you just break Sashes and KO things, and it was mainly a ladder trick because you can adapt to it in tournament, of course, and also all Urshifus are bulky, so now you may as well just run Brave Bird and just use it for what it is.
Yeah.
But flying coverage is really good.
I think that Crobat could find like a niche on a really well constructed team.
Yes,
you can. I've looked into it quite a bit. Like every time I'm in the builder, I always like stare at Crobat and think, you've got a cool typing, a good ability, a great kit, a great amazing speed. Yeah, there's something out there. There's something out there for a Crobat.
Yeah, like I wish it was. I wish it was. I don't know. I feel like it's a shame that Cross Poison's so weak. Like 70 base power coming out of that thing is real disappointing. But
yeah, physical poison moves are terrible.
Yeah, just otherwise, God, it's a massive shame. But yeah, I think that with that we just move straight on to the last Pokemon. I mean. Oh, actually, no. I should cover Glastrier because that was on the winning team that I thought. But it wasn't actually bought against me. I do think it's too weak right now. I don't think you can really get away with Mono Ice. It requires Trick Room. It's Intimidate weak. I don't really see it being good.
No,
but
without Dynamax, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not viable. You could argue an Iron defense body press set, but then why aren't you using Como?
Yep.
Yeah, it's got a physical ice move that can miss. It's ground move can miss. Policy doesn't really like. It was always good in Max because you could set off its policy and do things. But no, without Dynamax, it's not doing many things. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'll
like F tier, F tier. Like
I do really like. I really wish my opponent bought that to me in Top Cut, but I understand why they didn't. Like they saw Buzzwole on preview and were very scared.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah, this is it. Last one. Heatran. Let's talk about Heatran. Heatran has been a pretty big staple, honestly.
Yeah. I think it's just higher than Volcarona.
Just a bit. Yeah. I mean, it's more widespread, isn't it?
I would go for Heatran over Volcarona at this point in time. The thing's an absolute checkmate, it does big damage, but its typing is so good defensively. I can't remember. Has it got like 4 times resists?
Yeah, it's got an incredible amount of resists. Like seriously.
Yeah, like if 4 times resist grass, ice, fairy, bug. I'm sure there's one more. Steel. Yeah, 5. There it is. And it's got an immunity to fire with its flash fire ability. So it's basically not being touched by 6 types. It usually runs Chople or Sugarberry. I have seen like fast Life Orb sets. That's probably my favorite set.
I've ran into that a couple of times, and it always trips up me using Buzzwole because normally I use it as food, but as soon as it runs that, I'm scared. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I played Taran Birdie in the round 2 of the Nino Pokebros tour.
Yeah.
And he surprised me with a Life Orb overheat into my Assault Vest Rillaboom. I'm thinking I'm just gonna U-turn out here, bring something in, and he just overheats me Life Orb, one-shots me Rillaboom. I'm thinking, whoa, this Heatran's not messing about.
Yeah, like there's a lot of different ways you can run it. Leftover sub as well. Saw that a lot in tournament.
Yeah.
Like man, there's so much you can do with it, and it's a really great Pokemon for it. It's just got the nicest typing on it. And obviously with less ground types around as well, it really thrives.
Exactly, but it can never, because of its ground, it can never be S tier because the second it becomes too much of a problem, the ground types will come back out, or random moves like Stomping Tantrum, Incin will appear.
Yeah, plus Urshifu and Fini keep it in check as well. It can't really circumvent those matchups.
That's another reason why I put Fini on the team because my team that I mentioned before had Fini, had only Urshifu to hit Heatran, and it was too much of a problem. I had to play around the Fini, and the opponent knows that and can just use all the resources spent on killing the Fini, and then the Heatran can kind of just endgame.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we go, Eden, there's one more Pokemon, an interesting one I do want to talk about.
Oh, okay. So I edited the list just to show all the Urshifu Wars for an Urshifu talk. But yeah, all right.
Good.
Which last Pokemon did you want to talk about? Because I'll scroll back up to.
I think it's on the top row. Dusclops. I think it's on like the top row of the.
Okay.
Why is this mon not seeing much usage? Because you don't see much dark, and you don't see much ghost really. Like, I know you've got Spectria, but like it feels like Dusclops could just set Trick Room and start pain splitting and Nightshade and things.
I think it's because the whole thing that Dusclops used to do was do like weakness policy activation stuff, because it had loads of really weak coverage moves to hit things with.
Yeah, brick break and stuff like that. But
yeah,
even so, it baffles me that like a Trick Room, Nightshade, Pain Split, and then some other move, whatever it be, Will-O-Wisp or Taunt or whatever. I think Pain Split is such a cool move, especially on Dusclops because it's got such low HP.
Yeah, like you think so. Like, I'm really sad that it's not like used, but I guess I understand why. Maybe it will find some use in some kind of hard Trick Room setup. Like, I can imagine a team I face with the Jellicent maybe could have used like a Dusclops instead, for example.
Well, I don't even know if it needs a hard Trick Room setup. Can it not operate like a Porygon 2 on the right team? You like where Porygon 2 kind of just sits there and sets Trick Room if it wants. Like, for example, on the Joe and Colin team that just won the tournament.
Yeah.
It wasn't a hard Trick Room team. It was kind of a good stuff balance team with a Porygon 2 on it. Could Dusclops not operate like that?
I guess the main thing is Porygon has the coverage. Like, Porygon actually Bolt Beam and stuff is a threat now, but of course, Pain Split gives it more like matchups where it can just, flexibly do anything into.
Yeah.
But I feel like it might become a victim of just everything getting knocked out around it and Finny stopping it from burning stuff. I think that's the only thing that's stopping it from, getting as much usage as say Porygon does right now.
Yeah.
I don't think it deserves as low usage as it's getting though.
Yeah, that was kind of my point, because it's like I'm not seeing it. I've not even thought about it. But then when I seen it on this tier list, I'm thinking, wait there. I don't know if you work like this, but like you you see a Pokemon in the builder or something, and you know what it kind of does, and then your brain starts ticking. I'm looking at Dusclops. I'm thinking, wait there. Can it not do this? Could it not operate like that? But yeah, I mean, I want to mess about with it, see if I can make it work.
Excellent. So I think that actually I need to add 9A. So I'm just adding a tag for Ninetales-Alola, so people know that I don't just rate regular Ninetales. There we go. All right, so
Poliwrath S tier.
Yes. Okay, so this is the list. You'll get to see all of this once I edit it all and it goes live. Oh man, we've been talking about this for 2 hours and a half, so I'm gonna also edit this video retroactively to add tags to each Pokemon we talk about. So if anyone wants to skip to a specific Pokemon that they like, they can just jump ahead and people can just watch this video at their own pace, watch the whole thing, thank you for joining me. This has honestly been really fun. I love doing this. I love doing really analytical content like this.
Oh yeah, same. I mean, I could sit and talk about Pokemon all day. So
Same.
no, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We'll have to see if we can ace some more of these tours. Hopefully another one comes up soon, because I'm really enjoying the format.
Oh yeah, it's been my favorite format of Sword and Shield by far.
Same, like by a mile. Yeah, amazing format. But yeah, thank you so much, and yeah, that's about it. See you all later.
Goodbye.